Welcome to Movies, Film, Cinema, your premier movie podcast where we deep dive into the world of movies, dissecting the latest blockbusters, celebrating classic films, and exploring the magic of cinema. Join us as we discuss everything from Hollywood hits to indie gems, all things movies, under one roof. Pop some popcorn, close that disc tray, and enjoy Movies, Film, Cinema.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is Movies, Film, Cinema. I am your host, Big Bird. I'm here today with my esteemed guests. I'm here with Billy Venturelli and Tyler, the Mime Doctor. Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good, man. Inside joke you guys will not get.
It's pretty good, though. Hey, we are a brand new podcast here. Welcome to the show, where we are going to be talking about movies, movies here in general. We started off today thinking about, hey, let's get to know each other as a group, as an audience. Let's kind of find out what makes us tick, so you can see if you like us, enjoy us, share, like all that, buzzword, social media stuff. So we're going to talk about movies here on this show. We're going to be kind of getting into the nitty gritty, all that good stuff. So for today's episode, hey, let's figure out how we tick. All right. But first, let's hear an ad from our sponsor.
Do you have trouble breathing? Ever feel like the air is too stubby or stale? Then we recommend this product by today's sponsor, Outside, brought to you by Nature. Movies, films, cinema's #1 sponsor. Outside is your holistic way to get your fresh air fast. Nature's Outside is gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, nut-free, egg-free, vegan, and most of all, 100% organic. Get your crisp breath of fresh air outside today. Reminder, users of Outside must inhale as well as exhale. Too much exposure to outside can result in serious medical conditions such as sunburns, mosquito bites, and in rare cases may cause death by exposure. Breath easy with Outside. From today's sponsor, Nature, it is your #1 choice.
Hey, welcome back. That was a fun ad, right? I'm here with my great friends, Tyler and Billy. We are...
You said really great friends. That's great. We're great friends.
You're like
awesome.
the best friends. Like the 3 best friends that anyone could have.
There's only 2.
We've been friends for a long time, all 3 of us here, especially me and Bill. Me and Bill go way back to the high school days. One of the reasons why I wanted to make this podcast is because of my relationship with Bill and his, some of the things that we share in common is movies. And, we talk about movies all the time. We're always texting each other. Bill, unfortunately, lives in a different state now.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
I know. I miss him.
Far away from you, dude.
So we talk about movies all the time, and I figured, why not just talk about movies and, share it with the world? So he has a
Through
very
our
unique...
ignorance, we can inform you about what we don't know.
Right. But, I figure we can share with the world our perspective and see if things are similar, things are different, and, have our own conversations. Bill, why don't you tell us about yourself? I'm wrong all the time, okay?
As Brandon introduced, I am Billy Venturelli. I don't live in LA. I live up in Washington, but I've been in the film industry for 10 years. I have worked on some pretty big budget things, some low budget stuff. So I'm not Mr. LA. I don't come with the experience of what director did all this and blah, blah, blah. That's where Rain Man comes in handy here. But
when they bring the maple syrup after the pancakes, it'll definitely be too late.
But I do share the technical behind the scenes side. I am a freelance Steadicam and Airy Trinity operator. It's like a free-floating camera stabilization thing.
Nerd alert.
Nerd alert, yeah. So once again, my strengths and fortes within the film industry is more the technical behind the scenes, how things were most likely made. I'm not going to sit here saying that I know exactly how they pulled that off or that off, but it's like I can give my insights on what I think they did.
Like the more practical side, right?
Practical side of how things work. And even the VFX side, I do know a fair amount. I'm not in VFX, but I do know a lot of how it's done, either practically on set and then towards the post world. and then so forth. Yeah, so I'm here to be very technically nerdy.
Yeah, awesome. Would you like to introduce our mutual friend Tyler?
The mime doctor.
The mime doctor.
Do we feel compelled to explain that reference? Or?
I mean,
Yeah,
we got
go
time.
ahead, man.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, you're the doctor, doctor.
We're here to talk, right?
Well, because otherwise nobody would have any idea. Yeah.
Right.
But do they need to know?
I mean, do you want to ruin it?
Maybe we shouldn't.
Maybe you can actually open a practice with PhD behind your name. And,
Yeah.
Or is that what is the
Yeah,
doctor's PhD? Yeah, yeah.
Well,
and then people will
PhD,
actually and people will actually buy into your services.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but tell us about yourself, Tyler.
Yeah, so he said I'm just a free floater in general.
Just
Don't
in
know
life.
just I don't have any control over my life.
Just day by day.
Yeah, just like a generalist. I bounce all over the place. I've been in the automotive industry for a really long time. Right now, I'm kind of in between jobs, not really doing a whole heck of a lot. Made a bunch of money and can afford to not do anything for a little while. It's
That's awesome.
very nice.
It's all those kidneys he removed being a mime doctor.
Quiet.
Oh shit, sorry.
So kind of a unique perspective here. I grew up big blockbuster dude, watched a lot of movies. I collect a lot of movies. I have nearly 3,000 movies, if you can imagine, in every format.
I'm currently in his guest bedroom, and my blankets are movies.
Yeah.
There's too many in there.
So I've like Bill, have a big, deep connection with movies. The very unique perspective that we enjoy about Tyler is he's seen movies. He's a person who is not completely out of touch with reality, but he's also the person who's like, I think I saw that. But he's also the person who's like, I think I saw that. I think I remember that movie, right?
Yeah, I'm like very much like a layman,
Right.
And also I am kind of in the dark on some of that stuff. So like it might be interesting to, most people have seen this. Have you seen this? No, actually.
Right.
How is that possible?
How is that possible?
So
You're an enigma.
yeah, sometimes,
But I think one thing that maybe our viewers or guests might enjoy from you is a fresh perspective on a old thing, so to speak.
Sure.
From at least from the standpoint of where we're starting out from the podcast. Yeah. So
Yeah, like I might get too technical and crusty sometimes, and this guy gets super nerdy, and then you
Yeah.
need this random ass response to something that.
well, that or just a really general opinion or something. But the random part is accurate.
right.
we live for your randomness. It's great.
Well, we're excited for you to keep us grounded for sure. So awesome, Bill. Let's kind of maybe talk about a little bit what kind of inspired you to get into the film industry a little bit. How did you really
Yeah.
start there?
It's my entry into film is not your traditional. It's kind of weird. I actually got into college for aeronautical engineering.
Yeah, because you were going to be an engineer first,
Yeah,
right?
I got all the way up to thermodynamic physics and calculus 3 and had an internship at Lockheed Martin. And
Dang.
Yeah, I was going for math. I love math and science still, but I took film as a minor and absolutely fell in love with it. But prior to that, and I didn't know it was going to suck me into film, but my best friend and I growing up, aside from this best friend, I got multiples.
He's just bragging about friends.
I have all the friends. We had our jackass phase, so we always would like destroy my mom's camera filming stupid stuff. And then I knew growing up, Don Amici is. I always forget if he's a great cousin or great uncle, but Don Amici is in our family tree, and if you don't know who that is, he's got quite the repertoire.
And your repertoire.
On IMDb, but he's probably most known for the voice actor of Shadow and Homeward Bound, Trading Spaces, Mortensen, I think is his character's name in that.
Randolph, leave me alone, Mortimer.
Yeah, Harry and the Hendersons.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Cocoon too. Isn't he?
Cocoon. I think Cocoon was the first movie my mom showed me when I was a kid, and pointed out like that's your cousin or uncle or again I don't remember exactly how he's tied.
Put down the Cocoon.
You know him.
You know him? I'm like, no, I don't.
Is it like a distant connection?
Yeah, he's Man, I couldn't tell you exactly where he is.
So you didn't meet him?
He's a
or
couple.
anything?
No, and he died in 97 or
Oh,
98
okay.
or something like
So
that.
a while ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was only like 10 or 9 at the
Sure.
time. But yeah, if you look at his IMDb, it's like it starts way back in the black and white days.
Well, through the power of editing in Google,
And Google, Dawn.
we're gonna pull him up right now and see if we can find out some basic facts about him.
The Facts of Life.
Donna, what? I'm sorry.
Amici. Yep, there you go.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that face. Look at that dapper Dan.
Yeah, he's got that like
Dapper Dawn.
That's like a 20s.
Yeah.
like Vincent Price mustache there.
Yeah, I always say, because I knew that he was in our family growing up, but again, I never really fully dove into film until college. But I always say, like, I guess it's always been in our blood, and I'm keeping the bloodline of film going in our family, I guess. But he's definitely got a better IMDb than I do. The guy's got some acting chops and quite the career.
Well, I can say honestly, I remember when we were in high school together. One of the first experiences I had with you being really good at film and just being a creative person. We took Japanese together, and you had spent way more longer time on a video than anybody in the class had did, and it looked like a professional YouTube video from like back in the day because of just how much time and care, and you cared about cinematography and you did all these things, and I was like, so he wants to be in engineering?
Yeah.
So-
I do like math. I do like science. Like Tyler and I have been like nerding out like crazy ever since the James Webb Telescope has gone up in space. And
so beautiful.
Yeah, so I still have that like engineering side of me, and I still create stuff in the garage and stuff. But story, film, and character is a passion and a love of mine. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
That's awesome. Tyler, do you have a favorite movie of yours, or like one back in the day when you were, because kids, they used to show like movies on TV, not just on streaming.
What's a TV?
Right. But the one that you would like watch over and over again, like no matter where it was within the movie, you just had to go watch it or anything like that?
Oh, I mean, they're just like a lot of the 80s action films. And I mean, any of the Indiana Jones original trilogy.
Not the Crystal Skull.
He did say original trilogy.
I know. I was poking at him.
Why did you have to bring that one up?
Now the
one that shall
podcast
be
is
named.
ruined.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but so any of those would have been. I mean, I remember, because we had the VHS of a lot of those, and just I always thought it was fun to kind of watch the effects in slow motion.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
frame by frame type of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had one of those VHS players. It was a little fancier where you could advance it frame by frame. I mean, today you would look at it and it would look absolutely awful,
Right.
But when you're like 7 years old and you've never had that, it was amazing to be able to just watch an explosion like advance,
Right.
Like that. It's really cool. So I did that with.
So you used to burn out your VHSs?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You were that kid.
Absolutely. I don't think we ever actually wore one out completely. There were some Christmas tapes that my mom, like, she recorded a bunch of the Christmas programs off television during those, the holiday seasons. And those got close to being worn out. I mean, they were getting to the point where they were almost unwatchable.
Wow.
They were awful looking. But yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. What movies? Definitely, those action movies like those. I'm just trying to think if there were any other like great examples. I mean, those would probably be the biggest ones. I mean, obviously Star Wars, the original trilogy.
Would you say, knowing you, would you say like the Indiana Jones was an early inspiration or spark that led you into your mountain exploring that you do? And,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, National
did you, like-
Geographic.
Yeah, did you enjoy that?
Ninja
or did
Turtles.
you know about it in like Ninja Turtles? Yeah.
No, seriously.
Who doesn't love Ninja Turtles?
Well, Tyler's a storm drainer, so
Yeah, this is true. Well, I was just thinking because you'd mentioned Indiana Jones and like going exploring things. I'm like, for people who don't know Tyler, you love spelunking, and if you want to elaborate,
Sure.
or elaborate.
Care to elaborate?
No.
Yeah, no, I've always enjoyed, the underground, literally, any caves, mines, storm drains, that kind of stuff. Just super interesting. I've always enjoyed photography. I enjoyed taking pictures down there. You can take long exposures, get some real interesting effects that way. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, like in the early 90s, there was an issue of National Geographic that covered a cave in New Mexico, Lechuguilla, and that was just incredible. And I saw that, and then, you know, obviously I was addicted to the Indiana Jones movies that have a lot of that really interesting underground stuff, and then temples and all that. And then Ninja Turtles, obviously, with the you know, the sewers and stuff. And I mean, obviously, no infrastructure really looks like that.
Yeah.
But when you're like 7 or 6 years old, you're like, oh yeah, that must be documentary accurate. You know,
Right.
it has to be. I'm sure they're actually that way. And I tried to find out. You know, we got yelled at by a neighbor for trying to pry open a manhole when I was like 6 years old. You know, but
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually think because Tyler used to be, I think you still are, but even more so back in the day, he used to be more so into photography. Like it was, I don't know what you call it, like you were trying to develop the techniques and all that stuff back then.
I was. I thought that for some time I was going to do it professionally.
Yep.
I was actually accepted into college for photography. I decided I didn't want to do it.
I would say though that your work, I mean, it does look professional. Like you're the type of person who's not on social media. But if there were like a Tyler Instagram, like where it's all nature and like some of the shots that you have sent me, like you text me sometimes like, hey, look where I was today. Like you would have your own like mini fame within that community, I think. So, something I think that you should be noted for is something that you do a lot of good photo and you have a good eye for stuff. So
Well, thanks. Yeah, no, I that is something I probably should have mentioned that before. It is like, you know, photography and composition and that kind of thing is something that I enjoy, and good cinematography is something that I will notice.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like, you know, educated, like I didn't go to film school or anything like that. I'm not
You took photography in Baltimore though, right?
I did. Well, no, actually. So that's the funny thing about, like, you know, getting to go to this particular art school is that I got in for photography, but I'm one of those people that was my niche. Oh man, I was horrendous with all the other mediums.
Yeah.
You know, they said, oh well, you know, you need to be able to be somewhat proficient in, you know, in charcoal sketching and life drawing and all that kind of stuff. I'd never done any of that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I had to start from, you know, like a kindergarten level, just like square one, you know, like, well, I can sort of draw in 2 dimensions.
Like cave paintings or
Yeah, you know, like
And then I go explore the caves.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like the stuff that you'd find in France would be like high art, and the stuff I'm doing, no.
Right.
But, you know, so that stuff I was horrible at. And, you know, so I went there, and they wanted you to do all the general media stuff first. Like, and I actually enjoyed like the art history and all that kind of stuff that you took. But then all of the generalist, you know, art, I was horrible. And so I got better at it, but I started super low, you know, on the, and everybody else was way. And so I basically flunked all those classes.
Oh, wow.
And then, you know, I was like 18 and disillusioned. I'm like, okay, this is dumb.
Yeah.
You know, and I realized how expensive it was going to, because I had some scholarship, but it was just going to be just unbelievably expensive.
Right,
And so like I just nipped it. I'm like, nope, this is. And I also kind of saw the writing on the wall, like with digital photography and everything like that. And I'm actually kind of glad I pulled that plug. Just me personally, you know, I just felt like, well, I don't know if I want to pursue this professionally anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I really understood what direction the industry was going to be headed. And it was also a guess. I could have been completely wrong about that.
Right.
You know, but it did kind of change in a way that I don't think I would have wanted to do it professionally. But yeah, photography is something that I've always enjoyed. It's a huge hobby.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I can tell you have like a very cinematic eye. Speaking of cinema and other things, Bill, what's your go-to, maybe your favorite movie or movies you like to watch over and over again, or to that effect?
That is a loaded question.
I know.
You can't just ask someone in the industry. My default to that question, because I just don't have a favorite or whatever, but my default is Forrest Gump. And that's because this guy and then our other best friend, Brian Rhodes, grew up just wearing out that VHS.
Yeah, you guys did always reference it.
Yeah, it was by far probably Brian's like that was his favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And by proxy, like we just watched it all the time together. And my favorite moment with that movie is Brian growing up in high school. Like you know how some people have like random quips that you would just answer to everything. His answer to everything was 7. Like someone would ask him like, "You want to go get lunch?" 7. How are you doing today? 7. And is it 12 or 7? I think you know the reference, right?
I think it's 15.
15? It might be 15. Either way.
I know what he's talking about.
It's
Sorry.
a number. But anyways, like
42.
So 15, right?
Meaning
And
twice.
so it was Brian's first wedding. But it was the morning of, and I put on Forrest Gump just to ease his nerves. He was a little nervous to get married. So we're just sitting there just zoned out.
As you all should be, kids.
Yeah. So we're just sitting there zoning out watching Forrest Gump, and then all of a sudden he gets to the point of Forrest Gump where he's at the White House for the 3rd time or whatever the heck it was, and he's like,
I must have drank me about 15 Dr. Peppers.
I met the president again.
and Brian's just like, there it is. Like he perked up and he like gives his wife, his fiance at the time, he gives her a call. He's like, I figured out where it's from. It's from Forrest Gump. And she's like, okay, whatever. Because she's getting makeup and she's like in woman mode getting
Yeah, she didn't
ready.
even care.
And he's like all excited. Like it was probably more exciting than his actual wedding at the time. Whatever. But like just seeing his like, but aside from that, like it was our childhood movie growing up. But it's also, I'm not a smart man. I didn't pay attention a lot in high school and college. I slept a lot. So growing up, I didn't know a lot of American history and stuff, and it just wasn't my interest topic. And that movie was always a good movie for me growing up, but it wasn't until I started getting into college and learning about American history and stuff and knowing how much that movie ties into all of like American history and in a sense the Quentin Tarantino like what if type of thing with a Forrest Gump like put into it. Like that was my moment. I was like, what the hell? Like the whole simple things like the Watergate scandal where it was just like, I think their lights don't work or whatever.
Yep.
They're over there with flashlights. And so it's like all those little nuanced things I never even picked up on as a kid because I was a kid watching it, but it was a favorite movie.
Just a goofy guy walking around.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys can probably see if you're watching at home. I've got a Forrest Gump original movie poster from the original release date behind these guys here.
That one's actually original?
That is original.
Sick.
So...
Because before you guys didn't see it, but this whole entire wall was littered with nothing but Forrest Gump everything.
Yeah, I have every like Funko Pop that they've released for Forrest Gump. I have basically every version of every physical media that they've released for Forrest Gump. We went on a road trip. What was it? 2 years ago now?
Our road trip.
Yeah, our road trip where we went to Bend, Oregon the second time to go to the last Blockbuster.
Yeah, about 2 years.
I had bought a DVD of Forrest Gump at a Walmart and walked in and I said, hey, I'm renting this Forrest Gump from you, but I fully intend not to return it, but I'm giving you this copy. So in my brain, I'm like, this is morally correct because I'm switching them out, right? But I'm letting you know now, you can charge me for this DVD that I'm not returning.
Yeah.
But this is mine now. You know?
You just wanted the no return copy of...
I just wanted a rented version of Forrest Gump. So I have every physical copy that they put out, even a rented version from Blockbuster.
So Brandon, what's your favorite movie growing up?
Ninja Turtles. No, but yeah, Forrest Gump for me, a little bit about my background. Bill was talking about the American history side. I actually went to college to study to be a teacher, a history teacher. So my father was in the military, so big, military brat and kid. So I really related, I guess, to the Forrest Gump history, thing that was going on within that movie. I also liked it and thought it was funny because this guy's walking around being a goofball and doing his thing and just kind of navigating life.
He really relates to the character.
I do relate to the character. So, but the movie for me, I feel is multi-layered, right? Like it's a historical thing, it's an action thing, it's a love story, it's
tragedy.
It's a tragedy. Yeah. There's so many commentaries of like life and things that were happening at that time. It's a very quotable movie. So it's kind of hard not to at least enjoy it. But my argument would be, if you don't like that movie, you're un-American, and you can get out. So, speaking of quotes and quotable movies, I know that you and I quote movies quite a bit. Is there anything that you throw out there a lot that's like a really random quote that not a lot of people understand that's from a movie, and you're just like, you have to explain it every single time, but to you it's just so special?
All the time. Everything. All the stuff. But being around this guy, I quote this guy a lot. So I'm quoting Tyler.
We do quote each other.
Yeah.
That's certainly true.
Tyler, your stuff is more like Nickelodeon things and stuff, right? Not
Well,
necessarily
I mean,
movies
it just super random, all over the place. But one that I like, I don't know, it's not that obscure, but one that I enjoy is from the third Indiana Jones, when they're on the Zeppelin, and the officer is checking everybody's tickets.
Yeah.
And then, Indy throws that guy out onto the luggage, and then all the passengers are mortified, and he just goes,
No ticket.
and then they all are making sure, that's one that I don't know, that one's fun to throw out there.
I do have to poke you a little bit, because I'm gonna, say one that's pretty obvious probably to me and Bill. But what about hoverboards, Tyler?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, McFly, you bojo! Those cars don't work on water unless you've got power!
And see, like some of my little short circuits, I won't remember something that's like, well, we talk about that all the time.
Right.
And that's one of them. So, oh man, Back to the Future too.
Yeah.
There's so many quotable things from that. But yeah, the you can't take a hoverboard over water unless you got power. McFly, you bojo.
How about you, Bill?
A lot of them, but I guess one that I use a lot is he left us, but that's not what I'm gonna do.
Jurassic Park, right?
Jurassic Park,
okay,
yeah.
He left us. He left us.
But that's not what I'm gonna do.
That one, and then I was just mentioning from The Matrix. It's a scene where they're starting to get unplugged, and APOC gets unplugged, and then Switch is looking at Trinity, and she goes,
Not like this.
and it's just one of those like lines that it's like no one will ever know what that's from. But yeah, I quote that all the time, and I just get a deer in headlights.
I think for me, one that's like a really random quote, and it's actually going to be something that we're going to talk about here fairly recently, because it's part of the theme of this season's podcast is from Office Space, where I don't remember the character's name, and he's at the copy machine, and it's jammed or something like that, and he's like,
PC load letter? What the f*** does that mean?
So in my current job, there's a lot of like having to like learn things, and I get these weird error messages. I'm like, PC load letter? What the fuck does that mean? So that's something.
And you're just over there in the corner, and nobody knows what the hell you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. So I'm just talking to myself. But I think for, I guess, men of our age in general, and maybe men younger than us, we speak in movie quotes. So if you have a favorite movie quote,
Or if you're my wife, that's her whole vocabulary.
fair enough. She does, and she pulls out some really obscure ones.
Yeah.
When we were kids, we spoke in Simpsons quotes, but man, I've forgotten most of them now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's another one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, is because it's also a way of sharing our history, right? Like our the zeitgeist of our culture, so to speak.
It was like a microculture of that particular time period, yeah.
Right.
The 2000s were very awkward.
Yeah. So, I mean, in this podcast, something that I want to accomplish is basically I just want to share our wealth of knowledge with the world. And there's people out there who, rely on streaming nowadays, and who, unfortunately, you're part of the problem, where, in my opinion, is
What are you looking at? He's looking at us when
yeah.
he says it.
The studios give us what provides them the most money, right? So I feel like, especially like this year that we're about to do, we're going to talk about the year 1999 as an overall thing. And we decided to do it for the first year because, hey, we all live in different spots. Bill, you live in Seattle. Tyler, you live, south of here. You live over an hour away, which thank you so much for coming down today. So getting us coordinated and together and to talk about new movies and stuff is going to be a little bit more harder logistically. So we're like, hey, let's talk about movies that we grew up as kids, things that are really important to society that we feel that we're gonna give our 2 cents about, and really say, hey, this was like peak cinema back in the day, right? So I feel sorry for those people who all they do is rely on streaming, where it's an aggregate of like some AI, thing that says, well, if you liked, we've been saying Ninja Turtles. If you like Ninja Turtles, then you like this guy who punches walls. You know what I mean? Something really random that, hey, Netflix threw $10 million.
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You might like walls that punch you back.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's kind of why I want to do this podcast. And I'm very happy that I'm blessed with, friends like you that would go on this journey with me and have the same similar knowledge. And, maybe that's why we're friends, is because...
Where are we going?
Yeah.
What hole are we going down?
I love you.
So I don't know about knowledge, but I certainly learned something.
Yeah. I'm just hoping there are people out there who are nerds like us, who appreciate us, and people maybe more like Tyler's side who can recognize greatness and appreciate it and then want to participate, so to speak. So speaking of, like we had, I had mentioned a little bit ago, we're going to go over the year 1999.
So you want to explain like why 25 years? Just because we are 25 years old, and you just wanted to.
So
we're so young in our age,
right? It's nice. It's a nice round number.
Good.
Nice round odd number.
Yeah.
No, I think when we pre-talking this podcast, we were just kind of like, well, what do you want to talk about? Like, where do you want to start? We had said something to the effect of like, well, maybe we should start with older movies, so that way we can like speak about something that we know, that we're knowledgeable about, as well as to the logistical problems that we had, said we're going to start off with, because it's a brand new podcast and you're trying to figure things out. So 1999, hey, it's the year right before, Y2K happens. That's a big, scary thing for kids that are, at our age. 1999, I believe I was 10 or 11 years old. So like a big formative year for, somebody who, in anything in their life. I feel like when people describe stories, like, I don't know, I was about 10 or 11, and
what grade are you in when you're 10 or 11 years old? I'm
terrible. Like third grade?
No,
I think like 4th or 5th, right? So, because you're 5 years old, it's kindergarten. 6 years old is first grade. 2nd, 7,
wow.
8, 3rd, 4th.
His brain's gonna explode.
9.
So I think I was old for my class, so maybe
yeah.
No, that's fair,
So
because I think I was on the young side for mine too, because I think I barely missed a cutoff.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm just terrible at what age kids are when they're in what grade.
Yeah,
so
I'm
if
not
it was,
good at that
If
either.
it was like 6th grade, then that would be like either we're still in elementary or we went to middle school, because our middle school was 2 years.
You know what? That's interesting, because you said middle school, because from 6th, I came from Cheyenne. So
Yeah.
the 6th to 7th grade year, the transition, we had junior high school. We didn't have middle school in Cheyenne. So 7th to 9th was junior high school. So I remember Y2K happening at the end of my 6th grade year. So I'd have to be 10 or 11 at that time.
Yeah.
So
I was either just in. So that's weird. That's crazy to think that like 1999 was still just a baby.
Yeah. Oh baby.
And you're 3 years older than me?
Yeah, I was 14.
So you were in high school.
Yeah, I was 14 in 1999.
Yeah. So you have a slightly different perspective, but we're still the same generation. So like you had the same experiences of.
Yeah, I mean it's similar enough.
Yeah.
Like it's different when you're that age. The couple of years is huge.
Right.
Now it can be 10 years apart from somebody. Doesn't really seem that different. But
Agreed.
yeah, at that time, that's just an age.
Right. Well, I mean, I think in the future we're not going to be strictly like, okay, hey, here's we're towing the line. This is what we have to do. I think for us, because this is a new podcast, we wanted to give ourselves some structure.
Yeah.
And basically something to where we can just kind of like a jumping off point, so to speak.
And hey, who isn't a sucker for nostalgia, right?
Dude, nostalgia is great. I mean, us millennials, we love nostalgia.
Yeah.
I'm nostalgic about nostalgia.
I'm nostalgic about stuff that I never even experienced.
Right, exactly. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I figured we'd hit some highlights from 1999, some things that happened. And if you guys want to chime in with like, oh, I remember that, or like, oh, really, like that happened.
This is where your Rain Man brain kicks in and mine just goes blank.
Yep. Hey kids, Napster was created, and if you don't know what Napster is, so you know you go
that
like
was huge for me.
Oh
so
God,
I'll go into it later.
Oh no, you're fine. So Napster was you basically downloaded free, quote unquote.
No, kids, we were buying our CDs legally.
Yes, that's true.
Anyone guilty of a Napster level crime?
Can we
Free
stop using
shared
the
music.
term kids too? Because that just makes us feel old.
Is Napster still a thing?
Dude, we are old.
No, dude, we're only in our 30s.
Okay, fair enough.
But I guess if you're a kid, 30s is old.
Hey, people who are younger than us. So people would put their music, quote unquote, on to the interwebs, and then they would share it.
This was before there was a cloud.
This is true.
Just the internet.
Yep. And then if you enjoyed said music, you were, quote unquote, sharing your music with somebody who could be far on the other side of the country and grabbing free music, which upset the music industry because, hey, how are they supposed to make their money if you're grabbing free music from somebody else?
The real Napster.
So we would burn our CDs, which is not literally lighting them on fire, but you would put them into your computer with a blank CD, and you would put the music on there that you wanted. So rather than just having like a full Beatles album, you could put the Beatles, Rolling Stones, you could put Britney Spears, who was popular around that time.
It was a mixtape, except a CD.
Exactly.
Which was incredible for the time period.
Yeah, for sure. So another thing that was huge at that time, SpongeBob. SpongeBob blew onto the scene. You know, he was ready with Patrick.
Are you ready, kids?
And Squidward. As a kid, I really identified with SpongeBob. As an adult, I'm a total Squidward now.
Squidward.
So you were a mushy brain back then.
Yep.
You still are.
I mean, you know, mushy brain's good.
Yeah. What a fever dream of a show, though.
For sure. And it's still going, which is crazy.
Get in.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't even know that.
So they all actually, now Nickelodeon is trying to host the Super Bowl, trying to make it a thing for themselves and kind of get on that Super Bowl money. SpongeBob, in the voice of Patrick, do audio commentary for the sports games.
What?
So, yeah. So SpongeBob is like, oh, he tackled him. Oh, you know, like, and then, you know, Patrick will give his 2 cents, like,
second and long, and the Broncos, and those are the big horsey players. They have the ball, and they're going to see if they can find a way to move it.
What is this about? Is it still getting off the ground, or is it?
It's happened like the last 2 years now. So
Really?
yeah,
And this isn't taking place of normal like NFL commentary. This is like a different like streaming type thing, or
they're happening simultaneously and
No
live.
shit.
Yeah,
That is
so
awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
That's so good.
This year was like the first big year that they put like a lot of money into it. So
Is there SpongeBob graphics on the field with?
oh, they slime the players like graphically, and like so Dora the Explorer's on there explaining the rules from the referees, and it's
in Spanish.
It's no bueno. But no, it's a unique thing, I guess, that it's the world we live in, right?
Well, it's our generation. We're now the old people.
Exactly.
So we're in that power of
For sure
influencing that shit.
One of the first social medias was created around that time, and at that time, MySpace was created. So
1999 was MySpace.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know it was that early. Actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Depending on who was in your top 8, they still may be in your top 300 or 400 people in your friends list now on Facebook or wherever you're at.
My MySpace, 38 friends. Kick-Ass's MySpace, 16,000 and counting.
I tried going back to one of my old Facebooks, and I don't remember the password or whatever, but it's all still floating around on the internet, right?
Yep, it's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, speaking of internet and other things that are technologically important, people were freaking out about Y2K. Everybody thought that, hey, the computers were gonna fail because whoever the computer engineers at the time got really lazy and was trying to save space, and they just put the last 2 of the time codes on there as 99, and they didn't know what was going to happen when the computer flipped back over to 0, and they thought the planes were going to fall out of the sky, nuclear bombs were going to go off, and
end of the world.
Everybody was like panicking in their fallout shelters.
Yeah. People were really freaked out about that. I remember that.
Yeah, and don't you remember too, there was all the conspiracy theories where like, well, the Mayan calendar ends on like 99 or whatever. So
that Mayan calendar is 2012.
Whatever the heck.
There's
there's all this like conspiracy stuff that they tried to wrap up
there
into
was
it.
like a lot of apocalyptic, like modern mystical
But you know what?
prophecy that people thought the world was going to end then.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's funny to live now because we went through COVID. And remember when Y2K happened and people ran to the stores and were buying cans of beans and toilet paper and stuff. But it was nowhere near the COVID scare that we had. But it was like looking back on because maybe it was, I don't know, but we were kids.
Well, I think the difference between COVID and Y2K is like COVID, it just happened, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
right.
You got to act now.
There was
Or
more of a right now response.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Y2K is like, it was like 90, 98, and people were like, so we don't know what's going to happen in like
prepping.
a year.
Yeah.
So like people had time to prep, and like people like sold their houses. They like got in exorbitant amounts of like credit card debt, thinking
Bought your
like
guns.
Yeah, and like just went.
Did
really
your parents?
crazy.
Because my mom works in networking at the time, or I forget exactly what. She works with computers, so she knew it was coming, and she was like half worried, and at the same time also like nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But they were also like, so we actually had like a stockpile in our basement of like canned fruits and foods and stuff like that. But we weren't like in a total scare. It was just like, just in case.
Yeah.
Like, did your family do that at all, or?
Military family. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. They're prepared.
Yeah.
I think
regardless.
my folks were like they didn't care.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal to us. Speaking of big deals, though, Millennium is the album by the Backstreet Boys.
Boy.
Yeah, that came out that year.
Speaking of Nickelodeon quotes, you said that initially, like, oh, you quote a lot of Nickelodeon stuff or whatever. Well, I did remember one, like, what's a millennium?
What's that from?
I think it's from Rugrats.
Oh, that would make sense because they would mince their words.
Right?
On purpose.
Exactly.
Responsible orders.
So you'll learn from me throughout this podcast that I'm lame and didn't have cable growing up. So a lot of these quotes, these two know all of the stuff, but
yeah. Well, I
didn't have Nickelodeon. I got to see Nickelodeon, but I didn't get to experience it like you guys did.
We got cable later, but when we did get cable, it was magic. Because at first we just had, just a few channels,
Bob
and it
Ross.
was when I was real little, we just had the UHF and VHF channels. You turn the big clunky knobs, and then rabbit ears. You'd adjust and put tinfoil on, and that kind
Tyler,
of thing.
you were born in the '80s, not the 1950s or '60s. So I don't know.
Well, that stuff was still
It was still there.
It was still there.
It was just a torture device for your parents, for you.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hey, look at me, I'm in color! Come on in, it's lovely!
It's fair.
Other things that were on TV, speaking of cable, the big show, game show at the time was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis Philbin.
That started then too.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Audience, are you ready? Yeah, we're ready. Let's play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Here we go.
Everybody was talking about that then. Like, of course, since it was super popular things irritated me. So I remember, everybody being super interested in that one.
Yeah, and the unique thing about that show, unlike a lot of I guess game shows today, where it was like, okay, this person wins this week, and we'll go on to the next person, next week or next show. So the series of questions that they had was like, okay, you have to get to $1 million.
Andrea, you've won $2,000. You're just 9 questions away from winning the $1 million level.
And because you're so enthralled into their story, Regis Philbin would keep you on the hook. He's like, we're going to go to break, and we're going to go to do this. And then like, oh, we're ending the show right now. And it would cut people off, and it'd be the same person sometimes for like a couple episodes.
Yeah,
so,
and looking back, that was well done.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I remember watching it with my grandmother, who was, in her 80s at the time, and it was fun. It actually was like a good show. Just angsty me, like not liking stuff like that. But looking back, no, that was a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, they even made spin-offs and like daytime TV shows about it. There's a movie called Slumdog Millionaire that's about, basically I don't know if it's a fictional story, but it was like semi-fictional story about some guy winning, the millionaire prize, so to speak. Very, very poignant film at the time because it was like the first time America got to look at Bollywood, so to speak. But yeah, just very, very interesting TV shows and reality stuff that was kind of going on at the time. Reality TV was kind of very new around that time period.
Now there's a whole game network channel.
Yes.
And it is awkward.
For sure. Speaking of things that were kind of popular then, do you guys remember Furbies?
Of course.
Furbabies, I guess, which is a little offshoot of Furbies, was...
Furbies came back. and now
They
their
did.
faces are digital, and it's creepy.
Really?
I mean, the originals are creepy.
I mean, they are creepy.
The originals were creepy enough. I remember being like horrified by those.
Do you
when I
remember
was a
seeing them
little
with the
kid.
skin off and like the fur off? I guess
like the beak, just
the whole
moving.
mechanism.
Yeah.
It's
which
like
I saw a little documentary on the making of it,
like
and
practical '80s horror effects.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The gearing and the math and like the science behind the Furby face was actually pretty scientific and revolutionary, which is hard to believe because as a kid it was just like this creepy little fucking thing that would just like wake up in the middle of the night, feed me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Before like Tamagotchis were like
but yeah,
over everything.
the face mechanism and stuff apparently was like it was kind of like sending James Webb telescope to space. It was like very complex and like just to get it to all work off of like one gear or something like that makes all those emotions and movements and and they're still creepy.
Well, and to produce something like that on an assembly line that that would work properly and it'd be cheap and that kind of thing. Yeah, because that really was like like the next step in Tamagotchis. Because those were what, like mid-90s?
Well, if it isn't Tamagotchi, her new favorite pet.
Yes.
So what's that make me? Fish sticks?
I think so.
Because I remember kids having those. I think I was in like the 3rd grade then is when I remember seeing Tamagotchis.
What was the Wish.com version of it?
I don't know, but I know what you're speaking of.
Yeah. There was another version of it that was like the cheap Tamagotchi. If you couldn't afford the
really?
Tamagotchi, yeah.
Don't forget your Yinga Pet.
Whoa, doggies, Madonna's hungry.
Don't upset your Yinga Pet.
Knockoff.
It was a
version.
total knockoff, and it was janky as hell. And it's like
it was just the gotcha.
Yeah, you're gotcha
money.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, your pets would die faster because like they're just so hard to maintain, and
Well, I remember when I lived in Cheyenne at the time, everybody was freaked out about the Furbies because at that point in time, I know it's really weird to say, everyone was freaked out about the Furbies because they had more technology inside this little Furby than they did apparently than sending the rocket to the moon and like the space shuttle landing. So everybody was saying like, well, you can make a bomb out of this, and like they're like they sold 14 million of them that year. So like there's
could be spying on you.
Exactly, 14 million bombs.
And it was spying on us. The things were creepy.
Yeah, they were very creepy.
We still have an original one.
That's awesome.
And it works. You put batteries in it, and it fires up.
Does it like speak to you randomly in the middle of the night?
We don't keep the batteries in it.
Okay, fair enough. I don't blame you. So speaking of things,
we keep it inside of a lead box.
With a lock.
So speaking of monsters, pocket monsters are also known as Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Their show had been on for a while in Japan. The show had been on in America. However, it really, really, really blew up in 1999. Their very first Pokemon movie happened that year. For those of you who are Pokemon aficionados, there was Red and Blue was on the original Game Boy. Well, Game Boy Color came out that year, as well as Pokemon Yellow, which is featured Pikachu. So that was like another huge...
Yeah, because you couldn't really get Pikachu unless...
Yeah.
When you first started the game, there was a random chance that you could get Pikachu, right?
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, before the Yellow Edition came out.
Depending on like which version you got too, I think.
I say I don't think so, because I thought that you could only choose, what was it? Man, this was so long ago. Bulbasaur, Charmander, and then what was the turtle? Squirtle?
Squirtle.
So that was the whole point of it, right? Because in the show, it was random happenstance that Ash Ketchum got Pikachu, right? So in the game, if I'm not mistaken, Red and Blue, you could get Pikachu, right?
I believe you can only get it in red.
Red, okay. But it was like a
really
rare chance.
I thought that was the point of Yellow, was that folks wanted to get Pikachu like Ash did in the show.
Well, so in the show.
It's funny because I don't know anything about Pokemon.
No, that's fair. If my Rain Man brain serves me right.
Definitely not.
Right.
The mouth doesn't.
Yeah, the mouth doesn't, but the brain sometimes works. Yeah. So Ash was late to go pick out his Squirtle, Bulbasaur, Charizard in the very first episode, and the Professor Oak said, "Hey, I've got this random Pokeball here that has a Pokemon in it. Do you want this one?" And he gave him Pikachu, and Pikachu and Ash are like, really close friends, and so it was very marketable to like have this nice little squeaky yellow mouse that everybody like fell in love with that went Pikachu all the time. So the game, the yellow one,
That meant to like emulate the show, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the game is different from the red and blue versions because Pikachu follows the little Ash Ketchum character around. So he's on the screen with you, which was like, as a kid, you're like, whoa, he's on the screen. Like he's following you. Yeah. Oh my God, Pikachu.
Okay. Yeah, I never had I had the red one. I never had yellow.
Yeah. So the gimmick was with the red and the blue one, there's 151 Pokemon in the game, 153 if you count Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Mewtwo, and missing number,
which is a glitch thing.
Whoa, what? What is this?
Oh, you didn't hear
about that?
Oh, man.
I'll get back to that.
Cool.
But basically, the red and the blue, there was Pokemon on the blue one that you couldn't get on the red one. There's red ones you couldn't get on the blue one. So you forced you to buy both, so you can collect all of them and have like a little link cable so you can make friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, trading them through the cable was something that was kind of like a rich kid thing.
Yeah,
I remember
for sure. And then there were certain Pokemon. I think it was Geodude or whatever the middle version. I think it's Graveler or whatever that turns into Golem. You had to trade him to get to a friend in order to get that one. So it forced you. And if you wanted all of them, you had to do that
manner.
So, missing number was I forget what city you go to. I think it's Cerulean City. It's one of the by this ocean cities.
Yeah, this one I do remember. Yeah, you'd like walk on the beach on this certain like line, and you would have this chance that you'd encounter. It was just some glitched out thing.
Yep, and it was in the game that somebody had put, and it was like a word of mouth thing. Which another reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because like the word of mouth, I feel is more viral sometimes and more meaningful than it is like this algorithm says you should watch this.
Certainly more human.
Exactly. So,
Rain Man. Yeah. I said Rain Man?
Yeah, funny Rain Man.
Yes.
I just looked it up. Do you know what also came out in 1999?
What else came out in 1999?
Digimon.
Ah, yeah.
Digital monsters?
Yeah. For those kids who didn't know, Digimon was almost like a Wish.com version of Pokemon.
Yeah, kind of a knockoff thing.
Yeah, and it was like they tried to compete hard.
They did.
And I enjoyed it a little bit.
Yeah, well, Digimon are digital monsters,
Or digital monsters. The one thing that I did like
champions.
about Digimon is I was a huge fan of Beast Wars growing up.
Oh, yeah,
I was a huge fan of just Transformers because, again, I have an engineering brain, so I just loved how they like go together. And Digimon, I think that's why I liked them more than they should have been given credit for, is because their toys were actually like Transformer toys.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can actually like transform them into battle mode or whatever the heck it was, but like Pokemon didn't have that.
Well, Pokemon was more like evolutionary stuff. Where
It was,
you can see like the
Plus,
the
you
jump.
can collect the balls and like. Do you remember I think it was McDonald's? They were releasing the Pokeballs.
Burger King.
Burger King, yeah. I have one of the golden Tokopis. That was like at the time it was like you can't get that. There's limited. And
now they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
There
and
was
it's like
some.
It was cool. Sorry to cut you off. It was
No,
cool
no,
'cause
you're
it was
fine.
It was gold. It was real. So as a kid, you think
it was real
gold bar.
It was real gold.
But
It was real gold. It was just leafed.
Yeah.
No kidding.
But as a kid,
I had no idea.
It was like probably lead, so it was heavy. And so as a kid, you're just like, I gotta get the Togepi, and I have it, and it's a chunk, and it feels heavy. So as a kid, you think you have all this money in this plastic Pokeball, and it just sits on the shelf like,
Yeah, I carried that thing around for years till I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna give this to somebody.
You got one too?
Oh yeah. I had a
okay.
Togepi too, actually. But.
I don't think I got any Pokemon toys from like fast food. But what I was gonna say is I do remember getting in the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s. I do remember getting Mario Brothers 3
on the
toys.
NES. Oh, toys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from McDonald's, I think.
Yeah.
And those were really cool. I should have kept those. I should have kept them in better shape. I might still have a couple of them, but I have no idea on earth where they are.
Back when we were kids, though, like the toys you got in cereal boxes, you got from like Happy Meals and Big Kids toys from back in the day, from like fast food places. They were awesome. Like
they really were cool.
They was a great value back then.
Yeah.
So
they're still doing some weird toys in McDonald's and stuff, but they just look like a second thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not intricate. It's just like one mold piece
Exactly.
rather than like pieces.
Exactly. Yeah.
I haven't eaten fast food and I have no idea. They're pretty awful now, or
I wouldn't say they're just bland. They're just
it's not interesting.
Yeah, it's just a figurine almost rather than a toy.
Kind of junky.
Yeah. Do you remember the Burger King like? They had Transformers. Like they had a box of fries that you can transform into.
Yeah, that was McDonald's.
Oh yeah. No, they did it. And like
the
some of them
hamburger
would turn in there was like a little box that would turn into a thing. And there was one that turned into a dinosaur.
Yep.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, those were like early '90s, I think. Yeah, remember those.
Another example of like how things used to be. They used to be better. You know, movies have changed. Our childhood's changed, and
you've changed.
You've changed. I've changed. Speaking of change, let's talk about the top 10 list of movies from that year and what they grossed.
And this is, to clarify for people, this is the actual top 10 list. This isn't our top 10.
Correct. These are the top 10 grossing movies of that year. And this is just their domestic box office. And I think I'm just going to highlight probably the most... the most profitable that year as far as like numbers. I'm not going to sit here and bombard you with numbers all the way through. I just figured I'd give you the most top 10 most profitable movies that year. It's pretty simple to see why we have the number one spot for this movie. It's Star Wars Episode 1.
There's always a bigger fish.
Music take me going back now.
Star Wars Episode 1, domestically that year at least, at that time, sold $431 million that year. For adjusted gross, currently, over the lifetime, that movie's made over $1 billion. And that's just in box office profits. That's not the toys, the merchandising, you know, all that stuff that comes along with it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So that movie was a juggernaut among juggernauts from back in the day. The next movie that's on the list that was the second highest grossing film is The Sixth Sense.
I see dead people.
That was like M. Night Shyamalan's like very first like breakout movie.
One
like
of two movies that were good.
Yeah.
There's one that was overquoted in that era.
Yeah, for sure. And I have actually never seen The Sixth Sense.
I don't think I have either.
But because I watch so many movies, it's one of those things like, okay, I understand what the movie's about because it's been so quoted and beat to death. So,
it's like part of culture.
For sure.
There's some stuff that like I haven't seen it or don't know what it is or whatever, but I have enough knowledge about it just from culture.
Exactly.
That I'm like, oh, that's referencing this. You haven't seen that. No,
Yeah.
You're right, I haven't.
Right. Next movie on our list is Toy Story 2, the highest grossing kids movie of that year.
Oh, wow, new toys.
One of the first sequels that we'll see on the list here. That movie, I can't remember exactly what happened in that movie, but I do remember at the time, I think this is like the first, it's the Toy Barn one, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Where, no, that's not 3.
Toy. Hold on.
No.
Because what are they at now, 4?
I think they're at 4, and then 5.
It might be the Toy Barn.
Toy barn.
Where he meets his horse and Andy. Not Andy. What's the girl's name?
Jessie.
Jessie. Yeah.
Jessie's the horse. I think you're thinking of Raggedy Andy because they still got the like same red hair or something that. But yeah, that was a interesting time because like as a kid, I think I don't remember like they make sequels of movies.
Yeah, which they did.
Right.
But we were so young that I don't think we paid attention to it much. Plus, also sequels weren't very good back then. And
This
Toy
is
Story
true.
2 was. Even though we're sitting here saying we don't remember it,
Yeah, right.
it was not a bad sequel.
No. Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like, I don't really remember like I've seen those. I've seen, I think up through 4, I think.
Yeah, I think 4 is the last one that they've made.
Yeah, I think I've seen all of those, but the plots get mixed up for me.
For sure. The next one on our list is also a sequel. This is Austin Powers 2.
Ah, baby, yeah.
This is another movie that definitely for me, like the jokes come so fast that it's very hard for me to kind of remember like which movie they came from type of thing. But for a very long time around this time, people had like the quotes and were speaking it like just like Austin Powers at the time.
Because this one is the first one was International Spy, right?
This one I think it may be The Spy Who Shagged Me, if I'm not mistaken.
No, because I have it written down here. So The Spy Who Shagged Me is too, and that's why I had to write it down is because I always. Growing up, thought The Spy Who Shagged Me was the number one, but I think International Spy something or another is the title of the first one.
Yeah,
but they kind of just
they blend. The continuity on those are really good because I think the second one comes in right as the first one leaps off, like where the main characters are like in a hotel room and then you could literally watch them back to back and it would be the same story.
Yeah, International Man of Mystery.
Okay.
That was the first one.
Yes.
Okay, and that was 1997. Okay,
yeah. Back when Austin Powers or Michael Myers was funny.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of those.
Mike Myers. Michael Myers is funny too, right?
Yeah. I mean, he gets me. Yeah. So next on our list is The Matrix.
You think that's air you're breathing now?
The Matrix is probably in my opinion, one of the most influential movies within that year, for sure. There's so many quotable things from that movie. One of the things that people really, I guess, can understand and culture-wise is if you kind of do this flailing arm motion, right, and just kind of lean back a little bit, people know exactly what you're doing.
That I can dodge bullets.
As the mime doctor, you would understand. Hey,
correct.
A gunshot wound victim came in, and you did that to him to signify you should have done the Matrix.
Yeah, you should have done the Matrix. So, for anybody who doesn't understand that, if you're also just kind of listening to us on your favorite podcasting app, basically I'm kind of doing a windmill motion with kind of leaning back as Neo does in the movie. Next on our list is Tarzan.
Jane. Tarzan.
Disney's Tarzan, with Phil Collins doing
one of the most iconic Disney, of that time, of that era.
Oh yeah,
Disney
doing
songs.
The soundtrack.
Yeah,
I remember that was really controversial. Yeah. Like a lot of folks were not sure if they liked it, that like a contemporary artist was doing, and it wasn't like an orchestra or something.
That's a good point, because I think up until that point in time it was just like you said, there was an orchestra, there was like a planned thing around it, but this was like the very first time that they had an artist to do that. Because I think The Lion King was like the only other time they maybe like prominently featured somebody. Like I think it was Elton John who did a soundtrack or something like that for that.
Well, and I think certainly other Disney movies before had like pop singers do certain portions, but not like the actual the whole score.
Yeah, agreed. Next on the list is Big Daddy, The Sandman. That for me, at least memory wise, is one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. Also a very quotable movie. For those.
I always quote the line, just throw a stick in front of them.
Yeah, for sure.
No one ever knows what I'm.
Or there you go. There's your obscure quote.
Yeah, I got a lot of them.
Or just hip hop,
hip
hop anonymous. Next on the list is The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. This one was a very, very, very interesting CGI thrill ride. Because there was, the mummy monster, the sand monster that is in that movie. There's just a lot of Indiana Jones type of feel in that movie. It's definitely a thrill ride.
They intentionally went into it being kind of an Indiana Jones thing, and
right.
Yeah.
So
and Brendan Fraser, I mean, come on now, you can't go wrong with casting him as your lead.
For sure, yeah.
He's local born to Seattle.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Learned that a couple of years ago or something like that, but. That's probably why it's so weird.
Fair enough.
This is one of those that I haven't seen. And
you haven't
the
seen
Mummy?
it?
No,
Okay.
and see,
dude, you would enjoy it.
See, there's so many of those. I'm like, have you not?
But
seen
I mean,
it?
if you like Indiana Jones, you would love the Mummy.
Yeah,
I know, and that's why it's kind of like an unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. It's intentionally made to be a serious drama. I mean, it's not serious; it's a comedy, but it's intended to be serious in its tomb raiding aspect of it. But also, they made it to be straight up comedy and not a farce of tomb raiding in Indiana Jones, but they kind of made their own little niche of a movie.
Yeah, there's some built-in lighthearted moments in that movie for sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, and I know you probably won't get this reference, but so they're trying to race to get to this temple, and the boat that they're on in the Nile gets attacked, and Brendan Fraser and everybody has to jump off the ship, and Brendan Fraser goes to one side of the Nile, and then the bad guy goes to the other side of the Nile. And the bad guy goes, "Hey, O'Connell, looks like, I've got all the horses, and it's a big river, and they're screaming across the river. And Brendan Fraser goes,
Hey, Benny! Looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river!
And the guy's like, oh, crap, I am. So
I think you should go home.
I'll have to check those. Now, I bet Brandon has seen them, but I don't know if you have. Have you seen the Romancing the Stone movies?
No,
I've never even heard of that.
What?
Okay.
See, now you guys should check those. Those are really interesting.
This is why you're here, Tyler.
This is why you're here.
There was Romancing the Stone, and the second one I think was called The Jewel of the Nile.
Okay.
Oh, those are fun. They are so dumb, but they're super fun. They're kind of the same idea.
Jewel of the Nile?
Yeah, Jewel of the Nile was the second one, I think, and then Romancing the Stone was the first one.
Okay, so Romancing the Stone looks like it came out in 1984. It's got Michael Douglas, Danny DeVito, and Holland Taylor. Wow, okay.
See, I'm surprised that you haven't seen these, Brandon. They're a lot of fun.
No, and I think that's another reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because I've watched a lot of movies. I have a lot of movies, but I think I've seen the mainstream movies,
Sure.
And I would like to fill in my gaps of movie knowledge, And there's even some on our list that we have here that I'm like, I remember that being big, but I was 10 at the time, so it wasn't important to me.
Right.
And
that's my biggest issue with a lot of... Even to this day, I was young and I slept a lot, so I didn't like a lot of these movies. Like with Tyler, I remember seeing it, but I haven't either seen it since then or So I need to.
That's me
watch
with a
these
lot of
things
stuff.
again.
Yeah.
I'm not a smart man,
but I do like watching movies. Yeah. The last two on our list, we've got Runaway Bride. If I'm not mistaken, I think I have that up here somewhere. Right. Richard Gere and is it Julia Roberts? Yeah. Okay. I think that's the second time that they hooked up in a movie. The first time I think was
hooked up or acted together.
I don't know if they hook up, but but acted together. I believe the first time is what's that movie that she's a lady of the night and I don't know. If only there was this worldwide database in front of me.
Yeah, this is our problem nowadays.
Yep.
The computer tells me what I need to know.
All right. Pretty Woman, that's what it is. I was going to say it was Pretty Woman, but this is the second time I believe that they had hooked up as far as co-stars in a movie. Mm-hmm. So really popular movie. I haven't seen it. I would like to see it and see what's all about. The last one on our list coming in is The Blair Witch Project.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold and hunted.
That's surprising because I remember when The Blair Witch came out, I grew up Christian, so I wasn't allowed to watch it.
Same.
So I never got to see it growing up. But I remember when it came out, it was a very divisive movie, not only for its filmmaking, because I don't know if a lot of you people know, but
it was the first found footage movie, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was really popular.
Found
anyway.
footage and done super cheap. I guess you can see up here, it was done for.
I think the movie was made for less than $100,000, and it grossed. Domestically at least, it grossed 140 million at the time, and that's the 1999 money. So that's a huge swing.
Yeah, it was Tyler. It was basically it was guerrilla filmed almost. They didn't have the best cameras. They just got cameras that they could afford, and a lot of it was actually improv. The actors didn't know that they had bullet points and they knew what they were doing, and they rehearsed together to get to know each other. But the whole point of the filmmaking was they wanted that natural reaction. So the filmmakers almost kind of tortured the actors. They threw them into all these scenarios, not telling them what they were going to get into, just to get the authentic
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was like a social experiment or a theory, therapy experiment or something like that on top of making a movie. But nothing had been done like that at the time. And because of the subject and how scary it was and how believable it was, so many people after seeing the movie believed it. And
I do remember that.
Freaked out and
I do remember people being upset by it.
Yeah, I remember my best friend's brother came home after watching it in theaters, and they had this little dog, those little stupid mop looking dogs, and it was just asleep on the couch, and he came in. And the lights were out or whatever, and the dog just perked his head up, and he almost leapt out the window because he was so frightened by this little mop dog. But
just on edge.
Yeah, it was just one of those movies of the time. It was if you saw that movie today, probably not that scary, but of the time, there was nothing else out there like that found footage that it just made it so damn believable. And
for sure, a lot of people had believed what was going on in that movie. I do remember there was almost kind of the satanic panic feel with that movie, as well as I don't know if you remember or hearing the story, the War of the Worlds with
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. Yep, people believed his radio show, not his podcast.
Broadcast.
Yes, thank you. That people were being invaded by aliens back, I think.
Yeah,
in
they
the
thought it was
1930s.
real.
Yeah,
They
so
thought it was like a news broadcast.
yep.
Yeah.
So this was very similar. Of like the rumor was that this had actually happened, and that somebody had found this footage, and it's these people basically slowly losing their minds.
And that was the filmmakers actually kind of started that rumor.
Right, exactly. So it also started the the parody at that time. There's a scene of a woman, I think it's a woman, where it's the camera's like right here in front of her face, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so scared," right? And then she's crying, and there's like a dribble of a tear on her nose, and it stays there forever.
I love you, Mom.
Right? It's like a really intense part of the movie, but like if you're like not into it, you're just like, why doesn't she just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it was like Scary Movie or something like that.
I was gonna say there was a parody of that
Yeah.
at some point that even I remember that.
Yeah. So
and she was like just all this drainage.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think I remember that.
So, but definitely a very viral movie before things were quote unquote considered viral.
Yeah.
Moving on to who won at the Oscars that year. So we have Best Actor Kevin Spacey won with American Beauty. Best Actress Hilary Swank with Boys Don't Cry. Best Director Sam Mendes for American Beauty. American Beauty also won Best Picture. In total, American Beauty took home 5, and Matrix took home 4 Oscars that year. So, kind of a big year that year for American Beauty, and for a select few movies that year. I think we're at the point now where we're going to take a quick ad break. So, as soon as we're back, we're going to talk about Bill, your top 10 list versus my top 10 list. And Tyler, I want you to weigh in. I want you to be the referee here. I want you to, call the balls, call the strikes.
He's stupid. I'm right.
Okay.
Hello. So we'll be right back from a word from our sponsors, and we'll see you soon.
Do you want to feel pretty? Do you ever feel parched? From the innovative makers of Outside, now you can try the refreshing Nature's Water. Movies.Film.Cinema has been a long-time supporter of water and thinks you should be one too. Water is the world's #1 source of hydration, moisturization and ultimate thirst satisfier on the market currently. Drink your water today. Stay hydrated, stay healthy. Drink deeply from nature's pure water.
Hey, and we're back. That was a fun ad, wasn't it? Ooh, is that?
And we're back.
Is that good?
That's good.
All right, fair enough. You trying to start a fight here?
Yeah, let's go.
Do you want to go rounds?
Yeah, we're gonna.
Let's go
rounds.
10 rounds.
You want to go 10 rounds?
We'll go 10 rounds.
We can do 10 rounds.
All right, let's do a top 10 here, Bill.
Let's start off soft at number 10.
We'll start off soft at number 10. So we're gonna share our top 10 list of what we think are, in our opinion, which my opinion is better, of the top 10 movies of that year. For me, and I don't know for you if you struggled with this.
I did. I mean, you asked me earlier what was my favorite movie, and I always have to just default Forrest Gump just because that's the child. But how do you pick a? Okay, I'll backtrack.
Yeah.
Dune Part 1 and 2 definitely in top 5.
Of like your all-time
favorite, man.
Man, okay.
But maybe because that takes up 2 spots, I have to classify him as one movie. But
that's fair.
That's definitely.
I was gonna say, Forrest Gump was really your favorite?
It is up there, but
which is fine. I'm
I can't call it my. I don't know. It's up there. I call it my favorite just because it's my childhood, and it's a go-to that's so quotable. So it could be my favorite. But yeah, there's so many damn good movies out there.
That's true. And this year specifically,
oh my God,
so many good movies.
Yeah,
it was very, very hard to make this list.
So Brandon is the mastermind of this podcast, so he kind of had like the structure and stuff of what we should like come up with and things, and so he found a wiki page that has all the 1999 movies, and man, 1999 had some bangers, like one after another. There's probably only like maybe 5% of that list that I have never even heard of. And then the other, 5% off of that, or I've never seen, and then the rest of it's like I've seen, but it's like so many good movies of 1999
for sure. And there was multiple on this list that I had to like justify. Well, I already have this type of movie on my list, and as a child, I watched this movie quite a bit. But as an adult, I'm like, it doesn't really resonate with me as much as it did as a child. So is it really important to me? Is it really important possibly to our audience? So there was a lot of stuff that I had to like play like maybe this, maybe that, like the shell game of like, okay, where do I put this?
I think I landed on using tools of both of that. Because, again, I was a dumb kid growing up. So a lot of these, my top 10 was based off of, I guess, my experience with it from the time compared to now and how popular it is now. And some of these, because, again, I grew up Christian, and a lot of these I wasn't allowed to watch, so I didn't see it in 1999. So I think my top 10 is not necessarily the strongest top 10. It's more so like my experience with it and how it's been lived on over time. So that made it arguably harder to make a top 10 because
that's fair.
Rather than just narrowing it down to, preference or whatever. But
as soon as I made my top 10, I felt like there was like instant regret with like making my top 10.
Exactly.
And I was just like, are people going to judge me for my top 10?
Oh, they will. And I'm judging you right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I'm still right, but, I felt like this was a good exercise as far as like figuring out what my tastes are. Well, I'll kick things off and kick things off at number 10 and with 10 things I hate about you.
And take my eyes off of you.
This movie for me was like one of my first teen movies that I can remember that I enjoyed. For me, there was a lot of quotable stuff in that movie. A lot of that was actually filmed in the Seattle area.
Tacoma.
Was it really?
Area,
yeah. Yeah, it's actually the high school from 10 Things I Hate About You is down the street from me, where I live now, yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
It was a building that was designed to be like a hotel, but then they scrapped that idea and turned it into a high school. That's why it looks like a Harry Potter high school. It is probably like one of the fanciest high schools, at least on the West Coast. But it is just like
turn of the century, like early 1900s.
Oh, I don't know.
Turn of the 19th. To the 20th.
It looks like a castle. Basically.
It is.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's right there on a cliffside waterfront, so it overlooks the Puget Sound, and then the football field is like right down the hill in the same property, and it overlooks like the east side facing goalpost is facing the Puget Sound.
Man, the Pacific Northwest is so spoiled, gorgeous.
I know. My wife and I joke all the time, like these high schoolers are just going to this high school and they don't know. They don't understand how good it is.
Right.
Like we went to Bear Creek, not to knock on Bear Creek, but it's just in a little rural city like down here in
Colorado,
Lakewood, Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado to Washington is
Yeah,
it's quite brown here a lot of the year.
Yeah,
for sure.
So it's the high school is almost U-shaped, and like the backside is east facing. So all the classrooms that are east facing and kind of north is just overlooking the Puget Sound. And like it's just spoiled.
Well, even like their football stadium is like in a bowl, like into the ground, like bowl shaped type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's just it's so unique. Like I haven't had a chance to go visit it yet, but like
we did last time we went. I think we overlooked it from the parking lot, right?
No, we didn't get a chance to do it. So, but we went to go see the troll thing that was
underneath the Fremont Bridge. Yeah.
Yep. So, which is kind of cool.
Oh, I remember stopping to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And April Fools of 2 years ago. I didn't even know it was April Fools, but I was going by the school, and there was a thick cardboard leaflet or whatever you call it that was zip tied to the fence saying that filming is about to take process here for 11 Things I Hate About You. So it was a total April Fool's joke that they placed it up on there, and I was like, I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks to see if there's an actual production happening here, but it was April Fool's for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so what's your number 10?
Again, my choice was really hard. I went with Pokemon, the first movie.
I am the strongest Pokemon in the world.
And I almost didn't put it on this list, but I figured I'd give it a top 10. And that's only because I watched a lot of Pokemon growing up. And I wanted to catch them all. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember the splash poster of Pokemon where it had all 150, what is it?
Yeah.
153, whatever?
151.
151.
Yeah.
I used to draw that whole thing.
Dang.
In class
really?
instead of paying attention. And it was just copying. I wouldn't do it from memory or anything like that.
So at 10, huh? You put that at 10?
Yeah, I put that at 10. Because I don't really remember a lot from the Pokemon. Like it's kind of like Simpsons after season 13. We just stopped watching. Pokemon after the Pokemon movie came out, it just started getting ridiculous and evolutionary, and I just stopped watching it.
We became old men after
That's true too.
I was gonna say after the second season or the second movie, because I think Togepi is in the first movie, right, or something like that.
First season, because Togepi is what's the girl's name in the group?
Misty.
Misty, that's hers.
Well, they introduced the next generation of
evolution of Togepi. Yeah.
Of those Pokemon after I think Johto League is the very first season of Pokemon. It's the original 150.
Mm-hmm.
There was the next slate of 100 and whatever.
Which I still followed because it wasn't super ridiculous, but then they started getting into some crazy evolutional stuff, and it was just
right. So that was kind of like where a lot of, I guess, our generation was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That first Pokemon movie, that was, I think, the very first video I ever downloaded off of the internet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it was off. I don't actually even know. I don't think it was off of a peer-to-peer program. I'm trying to remember where I would have gotten that. I have no idea. But I didn't know that my computer at the time could even play video. But I saw that it was like a video file. And I thought, well, we can try it. I'm like, man, that's like, how big is this? Like 30 megabytes. Jesus. You know,
time, man.
Well, that was like, I think, everybody was dial-up then, basically, except for my cousin in Chicago who had like a crazy, broadband connection super early.
Yeah.
But so that was the type of thing, you try and download that and you put it in there and you go to bed and then you wake up, you hope nobody calls overnight or, the connection doesn't drop or whatever, and you get up and see if it's done.
Yeah.
It was the same thing, like, you never got to really talk about Napster at all, but that was how Napster was.
I'm not calling you the Napster.
And you'd get up the next morning and it would just be finishing the last track. I mean, and it was like, so it was like 8 or 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever. And that was a whole album. But it was incredible. I mean, because if you were a kid that had no money, or you didn't have a job or whatever, I mean, you just got a CD for free.
Yeah.
And that was incrable.
You did this allegedly, though, right?
Yeah.
This is alleged.
No, it didn't actually occur.
This is alleged.
It was a gift from
peer
to peer.
Right.
Yeah,
it's alleged.
And I thought that it was amazing.
Yeah.
And you could get a lot of weird stuff that there was no way you would ever be able to get it. Of course,
for sure.
Certainly music that like my folks wouldn't have let me get for a birthday or something. Like you're not buying this. But I could get that online or off peer to peer. And my cousin, who had the crazy broadband connection really early on. I mean, he was Mr. Popular because he had a crazy internet connection.
He was the drug dealer, basically.
He was a drug dealer. Yeah, I mean, he had, not literally,
you
but
guys want your internet?
Yeah, but certainly in the in the music realm, because he would sell mix CDs.
Oh yeah.
People would request, like, they'd write down on a piece of paper.
Don't reveal his name.
Yeah,
I won't.
This is all alleged, right?
Right. None of this actually happened. The names are protected. But so people would give him lists of like, oh, this is what I want for a mix CD.
He's the drug dealer.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It was a great analogy. Yeah. And so they'd give him a list of everything they wanted.
Way behind the high school. And
and he'd sell these CDs. I mean, maybe for like $5 or something like that. And he made a lot of money doing that.
Yeah. There you go. You got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah. It was amazing. It was a different time.
High schools were tough times.
Yeah. Well, in the vein of technological advances and sci-fi stuff, my number 9 is Galaxy Quest.
By grub Thor's hammer we live to tell the
This one for me has been, I guess, more influential on me as an adult than it was as a kid.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
I didn't see it when I was a kid, so.
Yeah, I didn't see it actually until probably I was in my teenage years. But this didn't really do, I guess.
It wasn't a flop.
It wasn't a flop, but it wasn't like to what they expected it to be. The one thing I found really interesting, and they made a documentary about making this movie.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was originally intended to be a rated R movie.
Really?
Yeah. And one of the biggest ways you can tell that, I don't know if you remember the movie or seen the movie, but at the very end, Sigourney Weaver and Tim Allen are supposed to go to like through the ship to get to the, I think it's called the Omega Drive or something like that. Basically, they have to go through like this series of like ports and tunnels, and then they have to like time going through like these smashing pistons and stuff like that. And Sigourney Weaver runs into frame and she sees what they have to go through and she mouths, well, F that, right?
Yeah.
You can clearly see her mouth the F word.
Even in the current edit?
In the current edit,
yeah,
right?
Okay.
But they edit it out.
Well, screw that!
How are we supposed to get through this?
There is a version out there in the raw footage version where there's more F-bombs, there's more dirty inside jokes. I think it's a PG-13 movie.
What's the rule nowadays? You can do a PG-13 movie with one F-bomb?
I think so, yeah.
And the rules are always changing.
Yeah, so I mean, it always gets updated. So, But for me, this movie is like the epitome of like my childhood in a little bit, where it's like Justin Long's character is like a huge nerd, right? Like now I'm an adult and I'm like, oh God, that was me as a child. Like,
Hollister, do you have the sequence yet?
Okay, the sequence is...
Like you've always been a huge nerd.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
not just as an adult.
Yeah.
And this one was like because I haven't seen that one. It was like a space parody.
It was kind of like Star
or...
Trek and Star Wars put together, based off of like.
Okay.
William Shatner has said that this is the best Star Trek movie to ever be made.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's funny. It's a parody. It's ridiculous, but it's actually really good.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's kind of flew under the radar for a long time.
There's so much like lore around this movie. The improvisation in this movie is quite famous.
Like the alien talk.
Yeah.
That's
there's so many like at the time were no name actors that have become larger, now and
beginning
more
in this one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like Tim Allen was the lead of this.
I started to remember like a little bit about it when you said Tim Allen. Like, okay, I can picture like his suit.
Yep. Alan Rickman is in it. He plays a character. The gentleman from The Office, I can't remember his name. I want to say it's like Rainn Wilson. He plays Dwight from The Office.
Oh yeah.
He's in it. There's Tony Shalhoub is in it. There's Justin Long. There's a long list of people who are in this movie.
Justin Long list.
Yeah, just a long list.
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
He's amazing in there. But it's such a great movie. I think it came out way before its time. Where it had been
in 1999.
In 1999, before it was appreciated.
Yeah.
So what's the parody that's out now that called like Lower Decks or something like that?
There's a few of them like.
There's the Orville that's pretty similar.
Orville is.
I've seen some of those, and that was good.
Yeah, it is good.
I've seen a few episodes of that.
Yeah, that's the Seth MacFarlane
There's one
spin on basically the Star Trek.
On Star Trek.
There's a few of them. There's one called like Avenue 5, which is supposed to be like Star Trek-y space cruiser. I never actually finished it, but it's about the idea of a marooned space cruise boat. And the captain's not a real captain. Everything's all automated. And so when it gets marooned, nobody knows how to like solve the issue because there's no real captain on it. He's just an actor basically. So it's a pretty funny idea, but yeah, it's something that wouldn't have gotten made back then, but Galaxy Quest was, so it's definitely ahead of its time.
For sure.
That's on my list, but it's not number 9.
What do you have for number 9, my friend?
Number 9, I went Wild Wild West. Yeah, I did. I put it in there,
God.
dude. I did. I put it in there. As a kid,
I judge you so much.
Good.
I judge you way more than I should.
Obviously not a poker player, Mr. West.
I think it's because, again, I was 11 years old, and it's a freaking sci-fi western with giant robot spiders. Come on now, and I know the connection.
And Will Smith.
And Will Smith.
Hey, Will Smith. There's an inside joke that me and Bill and a couple other people know is like, if you've seen any Will Smith movie, it's just Will Smith being himself.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a cowboy and I'm in the Wild West. I'm Will Smith. There's aliens. I got to shoot them. I'm Will Smith.
iRobot.
Will Smith.
Just another one of those random quotes like, "Oh, nobody shoot that green shit at me."
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what that
Yeah, so it's just Will Smith.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. From Independence Day.
Honestly, this, to be fair, it doesn't belong on the top 10 list, but
no, it doesn't.
Someone's, it does on mine.
Yeah.
And again, my list is based off of, I think of my, I had to teeter-totter between my experience back then and then how it lives nowadays. And back then, it was a fun movie to watch as a kid because, like, think about when they first get captured on the train and they get the magnet collars put on them. And they wake up back to back.
Stupid.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's so great. As a kid, you're just like, oh, they got magnet collars and they got to run away from each other and they come back together and there's these freaking discs going to like decapitate them. And then the guy who found out who is the scientist who created the discs, they basically took a decapitated head and put a rear projector through his eyeballs in order to get the image. That's so great, dude. Like, come on. Like, how's that dumb? That's so like... It's so fantasy. It's so like sci-fi. It's
I'm Will Smith.
And then all the at the time you're a kid, so you don't know they're blatant like derogatory jokes about Will Smith being black and the guy not having legs.
Their banter back and forth.
Their banter back and forth would not get away. You could not get away with it nowadays.
Right.
And again, I do know the whole connection nowadays. I didn't know as a kid, but the whole connection between the Kevin Smith script and Superman and all that. So it's like it had to go on the list, man. Had to be put in there. There's room for 8 more.
I'm hoping that this list gets better for you. I think I've won the first 2 rounds.
Listen, it's all over the place. Okay, you didn't win with Pokemon. That's a childhood favorite. Come on. Now.
Yeah, but you put it so low on the list there, sir. All right. Well, number 8, Blast from the Past for me.
A blast from the past.
Great Brendan Fraser movie. I often relate to this movie a little bit as far as like my personality and Brendan Fraser. Sometimes I feel like I'm a man out of time.
You were grown in a basement?
I was grown in a basement. That's probably why my aversion to spiders. I live with the spiders.
That's why you hate Wild Wild West?
Yeah, exactly.
Giant robot spider.
Giant robot spider.
Well, either you grow to appreciate them or you grow to hate them, right?
Oh,
that type of
hate them and fear them, and yeah. In my, I know that they have ecological purpose, but in my mind, kill all the spiders.
Not when they're giant metal.
Yeah. But yeah, such a great commentary on a generational gap between would have been, quote unquote, the boomers of, Brendan Fraser's time, from like the Cold War 60s to what would have been the 90s back then. Such a huge, dichotomy between, Christopher Walken in a basement saved my family.
Yeah.
That
image of like the atomic bomb was just a plane that crashed in their backyard.
Right.
Like they still felt the rumbles and the hit. Like, have you ever seen Blast from the Past? Or?
No, I think I've heard of it though.
You've probably seen snippets throughout the years.
This is the one where they stayed in the bunker because they thought there was
Brendan Fraser. I forget in the movie, was he a toddler or was he in the womb when they went into the bunker?
He was in the womb.
He was in the womb.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was born underground.
I have heard of this one.
Yeah. So he's
homeschooled.
he's never experienced life outside of his parents, and his parents taught him all these different languages, made him really smart because that's all you could do is just live in a bunker.
Academically, he wasn't a test tube baby. He was just like a...
But he had no like cultural exposure.
He's from Alaska.
Or any social skills because all he learned all his social skills from his parents. So
hyper homeschooled kid.
Right. And all of his knowledge was from when he went into the bunker and passed. So he gets up to quote unquote the real world and he's like
1999 maybe.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, what's this? What's that? And he speaks like he has the same vernacular as somebody who was from the 60s and he's a blast from the past, like a quote unquote, living fossil, so to speak.
It was good because I think it was also, it's on my list, but not in that part. It was one of those drama comedies. Dramedies. But it was like, it because it's Brendan Fraser, so obviously it's comedy, but it had so much realism to it in the sense that like it was a drama. So they played their characters. And like all good comedies, you play your character as a real person. Like you play it straight. So that's what makes the comedy so farcical, right? But I think that was what was brilliant about because he was just a 1950s product of this basement or whatever. But it's like every single character in that film played it straight.
Yep.
Like that was just the life they lived, but that was what's so funny about it. And when things were happening, and it wasn't a slapstick comedy, it was just a situational comedy that was like it just landed hard, and I liked it. It's on my list too.
Yeah, it's great.
So that's number 3 for you, or number 8?
It's number 8.
This one you're gonna hate me for. It's a good one, but it's high up on this Green Mile.
Oh,
I know. And the reason why
at least it's on your list comparatively to Wild Wild West.
We got a dead man walking here.
It's on the list, and it's that high up because, again, I didn't see it till I was much older, and it is a fantastic movie, but it doesn't hold a lot of memories in my brain as far as quotes or storyline or relatability or whatever, but it is definitely it is a top 10 for sure, so it had to go somewhere on there. And it has more praise than Wild Wild West, so...
I'll give you that. I mean, it's a cinema
number
classic.
8, not number 9.
I'll tell you one thing. They made Green Mile in 4K. They didn't make Wild Wild West in 4K.
They should have, because then that spider would be that more scary, right? It's such a good movie. So just shut your brain off and enjoy Western metal spiders. Come on now.
You know, that's how you'd have to.
Powered by steam engines. Come on. Come on.
I mean, what about the power, Tyler?
Yeah, right. Like a proto steampunk movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how far back steampunk actually goes, like the origins of that subculture, but like
it goes back. But as far as like Hollywood goes, how much do they cover it? Like that might
have been one of the first kind of movies that could have been considered in that genre. I have no idea.
Right now you're getting it. It's up there. I have. It just had a lot of memory with me as a kid.
You're trying to find the nugget there, but it's not there.
Trying to justify my top 10.
All right. Well, number 7 for me is Star Wars Episode 1.
No.
And for me, I think I'm in the realm of when I was a kid. This was an awesome movie, very popular. It was my Star Wars movie from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, you hear people saying, well, when Star Wars originally came out, it was just Star Wars, you know?
Yeah.
Well, this is Star Wars Episode 1. This is for
our generation.
For our generation, this is
unfortunately.
Yep, this is number 1.
Did you have you seen episodes 4? Well, if you're an older person, the Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Have you seen the original 4, 5, and 6 before this one came out?
You know, I can't remember to say that I had seen them or not, like, or at least remembered them.
Yeah.
What I do remember, as far as like what being like the cultural significance of the first Star Wars, is I remember living in Cheyenne. There was 2 theaters. There was the theater that showed
in the whole entire state,
and well, pretty much
town,
the whole town.
Yeah.
There was the theater that showed rerun movies as well as like movies that had been in the theaters for a while, and then there was the main movie theater that was in the mall, and it showed all the brand new movies.
And there was only 3 screens.
There was like 4 or 5. Yeah. And I remember we had to wait for like 2 weeks just to go see this, and it was like
there's so many people going.
Because there's so many people going, people just kept showing up at the mall like as soon as they open and just buy tickets and go see it multiple times a day.
Yeah,
and this is definitely one of those movies where you're like, okay, you saw it once, you should be good. Like it's my turn, right? Like people were definitely like buying multiple times and scenes and
toddler. I want my cookie too.
Pretty much, you know. And I was like,
Brandon.
when I finally got to go see it, like on a really off random day with a friend of mine, it was like, wow, this is so cool, and you know, it was like a whole new world to me of like what movies could be, so to speak. Space. Yeah. So if I were to make the Bill argument of like, but there's giant spiders.
I ain't judging, man.
Yeah.
Star Wars is on my list too.
Yeah, there's giant spaceships and they go to war and there's stars and stuff. That was my.
I don't fault
That
you.
was my Wild West.
We all hate the obvious reasons of Star Wars Episode 1, but
yes.
But at the time, at our age, Star Wars Episode 1 was fucking awesome.
Yeah, but you know, I do have to, because this was at this point in time the first, quote unquote, the first 3 Star Wars, the original Star Wars, was all George Lucas, right?
No, it was different directors.
I mean, like as far as like him writing it.
He is like I don't know. I think he wrote the first one, and I think he co-wrote. And like, I'm not too Rain Man brain about all that stuff. He is basically just the mastermind of Star Wars.
Well,
but Star Wars Episodes 1, 2, and 3, I'm pretty sure he directed all those.
So and I could be wrong, and there are plenty of Star Wars nerds out there who will correct me immediately.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting shunned right now. The comments are blowing up.
From my understanding and recollection, that George Lucas was the writer and director of all 3, Episode 1 through 3 Star Warses.
1 through 3 or 4, 5, and 6?
1 through 3. And then he directed and wrote I guess it would be considered number 4 now, and was like the writer of 4, 5, and 6. And I don't know if he had his hands in productions of the other ones, but from my understanding, this was like his quote unquote his baby. He had like untethered creative ability within the first 3 movies. So it wasn't until later on in life that I kind of understood and knew like how important Star Wars was, and like got to go through this because my dad was like, oh yeah, Star Wars, like that's cool, like you know, that was something cool that I did when I was a kid. So Star Wars is number 7 for me.
And let me backtrack a little bit. Did you originally, when you brought that up, did you say Episodes 1, 2, and 3, or were you referencing 4, 5, and 6?
I don't know which
because
section you're referring to.
I think I was
yeah.
trying to say like he didn't direct the original like 4, 5, and 6 altogether. But yeah, I think you're right. I just looked it up. 1 and 2 he directed and writ. I'm looking up now if he did number 3 because he might have not done number 3. Have you seen all the Clone Wars and
I have not.
Rebels
I know that's more of your shtick.
Oh, it's so good.
How about you, Tyler? How was episode 1 for you? Like,
so that one, I grew up with the 4, 5, and 6. You know, the original movies from the 70s and early 80s, and like my folks really enjoyed those. We'd watch them. You were talking about watching movies on television, and so like those were some that we had on VHS, and then I'd also watch on TV. The Death Star blowing up is one of those scenes that I'd play slowly.
The original or the revamped version of it.
These were VHS tapes.
Yes, it was the original
that we got. This would have been probably 90 or 91, maybe 89. I don't really remember. But I didn't like the first episode 1. Like, I thought it was beautiful. I remember because I went with my folks. I remember we thought it was beautiful. Like the cinematography was beautiful. And we're like, man, look at the computer, the CGI was incredible, but we didn't like what they did with the story. We just, and like, it was interesting because really everybody loved it at that time, but there were certainly people that did not, that crowd was certainly vocal about that. Even I remember that as a kid, but I mean, overall, everybody seemed to really like it. I think, my parents and I had just gotten so used to the originals, those that we just didn't, you have like an expectation of where the story is going to go or where they're going to start the story in this case. And we just didn't like it.
Well, remember with the originals, it was about the Force, which is in obviously the episodes 1, 2, 3, and then in episode 1 they undid everything with the midichlorians.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to backtrack in the sense that it's like. So I don't know if you know that whole argument at all, but like
I remember that kind of but I don't remember any details.
Yeah, the whole idea is like the original is like the Force is what surrounds us and binds us and all this stuff, and like it can exist in everyone and anyone. And then in episode 1, they basically boiled it down to
it was like genetic, right?
Yeah. If you had more midichlorians, then you're a Jedi. If you don't, then yeah. So it's like it kind of just like
it took out the specialness of the Force,
the whimsicalness, the space. Sci-fi-isness, and it just made it genetics and stuff like that. And then in the newer ones, they haven't blatantly undone it, but they have more so just been like, well, if you have more midichlorians, then it's easier for you to train and be in it.
Well,
and you could still be a Jedi if you have less, but it's like, yeah.
I do remember like and I remember people in high school arguing about that, like whether they liked that idea or not. But I remember one thing that I personally didn't like about the episode 1 was that the practical effects in those original Star Wars movies, 4, 5, and 6, they just had this gritty kind of
the universe that Star Wars is.
Yeah, and at least I haven't seen episode 1 in, probably more than 20 years. So I don't remember very well. I could be wrong. But like, I remember it being, everything was, so shiny and like clean looking, kind of sterile looking.
Yep.
And the original Star Wars, 4, 5, and 6, I know I keep saying the original and
no,
that's how our generation understands it.
But that's kind of how we referred to them when I was a kid. But those movies, the 4, 5, and 6, they seemed more organic and they seemed lived in more.
So there's
things were old and it's like you were with some of these ships. It's like how it would be if you went to like a third world country or something and there was like a rebel faction and they had gotten a bunch of Toyotas. And and we're outfitting them to do something, and it felt more real.
The idea there's two parts to that. The idea behind it is kind of like in George Lucas's mind is this is kind of pre-war, like episodes 1, 2, and 3. It's kind of pre-war, and then episodes 4, 5, and 6 is kind of like just all the fallout and just like
the inner conflict.
And I love, and I'll quote Adam Savage on this, and I don't know if this is Adam Savage's. Terminology or if this is just what he developed, because Adam Savage worked on episode 1.
You told me that. I didn't know that.
He worked for ILM for a little bit
until you told me.
And the best way he describes it and boils it down to is Star Trek is a utopian experience and not experience. He probably uses different words, but Star Trek is utopian and Star Wars is dystopian. and that's that aesthetic that you like. And we all agree, like that original aesthetic. But I mean, it's also hard, right? Because it's like when that first came out, when did episode or 5 come out, whatever, it was practical effects is all you had. Practical effects and blue screen is basically all you had.
Yep.
Whereas now in 1999, so George Lucas is the founder of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, which is like
the original 4 was that 77?
Yeah, it's definitely 70s. But
late 70s,
now,
I believe.
Now, blue screen must have... Did they have blue screen then,
Yeah,
or was
they
that
did.
still in its infancy?
They had it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
so
It was
that's...
because of movies like that, though.
Exactly.
Okay.
So ILM, there wasn't really much that existed on that scale in order to achieve a movie like this. And so George Lucas basically left LA and moved up to Sacramento, California, to start ILM. And ILM is not the grandfather, I would say, but it's also like it's pretty much the grandfather of modern special effects. Without Star Wars, I would say there wouldn't be this push to where we're at today. So a lot of those effects were started and revolutionized and stuff like that because of Star Wars Episode 4 or the original Star Wars or A New Hope. What it does kind of hold up still, but the graphics are still on that teetering of like.
Yeah.
I need to go back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
all 3 of those really, all those
Yeah.
from that period.
You'll still probably have the same opinion, but yeah,
Probably.
So your number 7, Bill?
My number 7 was Galaxy Quest.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because it had to go in there. But I actually didn't see Galaxy Quest until much later in life. But I loved it. I'm not a Star Trek fan, and I would say it's a more Star Trek movie than it is a Star Wars movie, but it was more just a parody of those space movies in general. But I loved it. It's great. I'm a Tim Allen fan. All the stars that were in it.
For sure.
So good. The comedy was spot on. It was good. But yeah, we already went into ad nauseum on that one. So
fair enough. So then for number 6, this is another movie that I would have to say, living in the world of Cheyenne, that we had to spend weeks to wait for to see this one, was Pokemon, the first movie.
So Pokemon was that big too up in Cheyenne?
Oh gosh, yeah. And I remember promotional thing that they had. If you went to go see the movie, it was like advertised because Pokemon cards were huge at the time. If you went to go see the movie, they gave you a Pokemon card that was like at the movie. So
like a special promotional one.
Right. And it's like, you only get it at the movie and you can only get it here. And I remember people going crazy for those things when we lived up in Cheyenne, that like, we have to go see it now because if you don't, you get that Pokemon card. And it's like, oh, we have to have that one.
And then you're a loser.
Yeah. You're the biggest loser if you don't have the card. So
was it Mewtwo?
I think Mewtwo was the card. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was, I think that card. But at the same time, that movie for me was huge because it was one of the first times I realized, oh, my kids' stuff can be cool and marketable.
Because it was actually legitimately like well told drama.
Yeah.
Like it flowed like a Hollywood film.
It did.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of heart in that movie, as well as like, so now that I'm an adult, I realize this, like, okay, there's a kid's show.
You're an adult?
Sometimes.
I don't think so.
So when you see a kid's show, there's only so much production value within a show because they got to bing, bang, boom. They got to move on to the next one, right? Well, this one, it was drawn different. It was like darker. It was like, there was just so much more intent and like so much more, for lack of a better term, like, star power, money within this movie, that it just was like, oh, like
this is what I could be watching every Saturday morning.
Exactly. Like, what's wrong with my TV at home?
Speaking of which, Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh yeah.
That used to be a thing. I used to just have my bowl of cereal.
Yep.
And now, is it still a thing?
I have no clue. I doubt it because
there's streaming and
streaming
all
and
these
YouTube exists.
But you because back in our day, you couldn't just call things up on whim. You had to wake up Saturday morning.
Yeah,
and
like
watch
early
the
too.
And it was a lot of repeats.
Yeah, they started at like 6.
Yeah. I mean, the Saturday morning, it would be like, sometimes it was the new stuff that was coming out that week, but for the most part, it was like repeats and stuff like that. But it's like, that's what you lived for, is school was done on Friday. Saturday morning, I got my cereal. I got my Captain Crunch, and I'm watching my Animaniacs, Beast Wars, all that stuff. And it's like, it's just, I think to your testament of why you wanted to start this podcast and everything, I think that was one thing that was very our time. It was, we had time.
Yeah.
It was, everything in our generation was like things weren't recorded, things weren't on demand. Things were starting to become on demand with cable, but for the most part, it's like you had to be there for the time slot.
Yep.
You had to wait. So it was more of an event. It was more of, like you said, going to the theater and Pokemon the movie. I would never guess that. I mean, in Cheyenne, it makes sense because what else do you do in Cheyenne, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't guess that there would be lines out the door and constant people buying up all the tickets for Pokemon the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, things in our generation used to be more of an event rather than just like, oh, I'll pull that up right now and watch it in 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So then where are we at right now?
Number 6.
So that would be, because you already got Galaxy Quest. So my number 6 was Blast from the Past.
Oh, nice.
And I would have put that up higher because I do love that movie so much, but at the same time, it wasn't. At the end of the day, it's not a movie that won awards or had much, like, long-lasting.
Right, like some gravitas to it.
Yeah, so it had to go in there, but it had to go in there, I guess, in the middle. But I love it. It's such a unique film. It's kind of like The Truman Show, where it just has this weird whimsical feeling to it. And
yep, for sure.
You know The Truman Show? With
I've actually seen that.
So it's along that same feeling of like this weird whimsical like land that he's living in type of thing, and it's just like things are happening to him.
Just a fish out of water kind of.
Yep, exactly. Moving on to number 5, that darn PC load letter.
PC load letter? The f*** does that mean?
Took my stapler.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Milton, who also does the voice of Bill on King of the Hill, is Milton. For those of you who have seen the movie before or haven't seen the movie, he is one of the office workers in there who has a very monotone voice, and he speaks very softly, and then he is really impressed by his red stapler. And Schwingline actually made a red stapler, especially for that movie. But it, as an adult, I think it resonates with me a little bit more because we all have that like crappy job at some point in our lives, and it's just soul sucking. And then I would love to be hypnotized and be like, okay, I can live through life now and do my thing and have that laissez-faire episode or feel.
I never had a cubicle job, but it's the type of people, and the story is it's like these jobs just exist. Out there. Like we worked at Sam's Club. That's not a cubicle job, but it kind of had those characters in it. You know what I mean? Like one of your favorite movies, not 1999, but Idiocracy. Same creator, Mike Judd, and like it's just that type of humor that is kind of timeless because it's just situational of like it's just human life and condition.
For
that's
sure.
what Office Space is, and
it's a great commentary on the byproduct of the world that we live in. It's just
even back then. It's the same nowadays.
Yep, exactly.
I'm sure you've seen parts of.
I'd recognize a lot of the cultural references when people talk about it, but no, I've never seen Office Space.
Oh, it's so good, and there's a lot of quotable stuff in there as well, and parodied things that have been done quite a bit. One thing that because I collect physical media, thing that I really enjoy that I wish I still had, but Barnes & Noble had a special edition of Office Space, and there's a scene in there where a gentleman, I forgot how he gets injured, but basically he gets like a big injury paycheck, and he's trying to make a mat, and that's his $1 million idea. He's gonna make a mat. It's called the Jump to Conclusions mat, and his way to communicate with people is like, when you're angry, you jump on angry. When you're sad, you jump on sad. When you're mad, so on and so on. Barnes & Noble, with their DVD version of it, had a Jump to Conclusions mat.
Amazing. An actual size mat.
An actual size mat that was like folded up, that was inside the DVD.
It was a Jump to Conclusions mat.
And this is also like, this is one of the reasons why Big Bird wanted to start. And for those of you who are listening, sorry, this is Brandon Torres, who started this podcast, but growing up, we called him Big Bird.
Hey, Big Bird!
How tall are you?
6'4".
6'4", yeah. For the longest time, never knew him by his first name. Didn't know why we called him Big Bird, but we played football together, so it's like it was 4 years of testosterone male bonding. He was always Big Bird.
Yep.
So yes, you'll probably hear me a lot through this podcast call him Big Bird.
Yep.
Sorry if you're confused. That is Big Bird. But yeah, that's Brandon. Big Bird likes physical media. He wanted to start this podcast because he's got like a whole apartment just to the brim of physical media, and that's right up your alley of And I'm not a physical media collector because I have a lot of other expensive hobbies that pull me away from that. But I love that aspect too of like, you go to places like Barnes and Nobles or you go somewhere else and it's like the memorabilia or whatever that they attach to the physical copy is what makes it special and what makes it like memorable and worthwhile having, like a little trophy.
Yeah.
And it's got the nerd points because it's got that obscure reference within the freaking movie.
Yeah. And nowadays with streaming, you know, to get on another soapbox of why I want to do the podcast as well as, you know, quote unquote, why I collect physical media. You've got movies now that at any point in time, they can change the movie through editing or through anything on the movie through streaming. And it's not the way that you remember it, you know? So once you have a physical copy, that's it. That's the movie. It's done. It's pressed. It's there. As well as if you had a digital copy that you bought from somewhere, you don't physically own that, you know, digital version of that. So if for those of you who had Ultraviolet back in the day, very recently in the past 6 months, Sony, people who bought Discovery or anything, you know, Discovery Channel or that type of vein of stuff and bought it on the PlayStation Network and you bought a digital copy, you can't watch it anymore. They took it away from you. Even though you purchased it, they took it away from you.
Cool.
So,
and like, even if you didn't purchase it, you're paying for like Netflix and like Amazon Prime. And it's like Amazon Prime, you pay for Amazon Prime, but when you go on Amazon Prime, you're still like, oh, I still have to rent or buy this. Yep. And then like Netflix, it's like, oh, you've got only 10 days until they take this title down. And it's just like, but that's been up there for freaking ever. And it's like,
well, think about Disney Plus is, you know, I think it was like what, $6 or $7 when it started, and now it's raising up there. If I really enjoy, I'm gonna throw up a random Disney movie, but like, you know, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to watch Beauty and the Beast once every 6 months, well, that's 6 months of having to buy that at, you know, $10 a pop. I bought Beauty and the Beast once for $10, and it's mine until I die.
Yeah.
So that's my personal take on it.
Unless it gets moldy.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
But yeah. Soapbox over. Did you do your number 5 yet?
I think I'm on my Big Daddy.
Big Daddy. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
That almost made my list.
Yeah. It's again, Simple Mind, didn't pay attention a lot growing up. So obviously Adam Sandler comedy is simple minded and lives with you forever. But something about Big Daddy.
Pony?
Yes.
Hip hop? Hip hop Anonymous? Damn you! You get him the easy ones!
This was the only Adam Sandler movie that was in 1999 anyways, right? So
to my knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, from our list. So yeah, it definitely had to make it on there. Wholesome, funny. It was before Adam Sandler. I wouldn't say Adam Sandler fell into the same vein as Mike Myers, but like stop being like funny.
Yeah.
It's like comedy that could only work in the 90s.
Yeah. Very slapsticky.
Racy in some areas and stuff like that. And it's just like, you just can't do it nowadays. I mean, you could, but then it just wouldn't get made or whatever, you know?
Right.
But, so yeah, like Adam Sandler's always been in our hearts, and Big Daddy was a nice, wholesome movie. And, it's your typical Adam Sandler, but he's forced to be clean because there's a kid aspect in it and all that stuff. So it kind of changes the type of humor that, yeah.
Yep.
Again, it doesn't go towards the top. Maybe Wild Wild West should have taken place. I don't know.
You reminded me.
But it definitely... Big Daddy's not a number one, but it definitely needs to be in there somewhere in the middle.
For sure. Moving right along, my number 4, I think it's probably going to be number 1 for a lot of people. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but for me, it's number 4. It's Fight Club.
I'm going to get a lot of hate for my number 1.
In the end, you will thank me.
It's not Fight Club either, but yeah. It's
yeah. Fight Club, everybody who was in college had a Fight Club poster, and apparently in the 90s. And like, it is like the quintessential like bro Chad movie. Like, oh, you don't understand. Like, this is peak stuff here. You know, like them trying to be like, you know, cinema, you know, files themselves and trying to like convey that their understanding of peak, you know, satire and other things like that.
Peak art, yeah.
Yeah, peak art.
Fight Club, the movie that everybody misunderstood.
Exactly. Yeah. So my buddy John, who himself is like a huge Fight Club fan. He has a friend of his who gave him a copy of Fight Club that he actually stole from a library because John collects first editions of books, right?
Nice.
And for the longest time, John was like, "Man, I wish it wasn't." It has like the library stamp and like the little card that you used to put in there.
Yeah, but that's the cool part about it, right? Now
So
now he's like that.
So that's
Does
what
it
I
even
pointed
have
out
the
to
little
him. I was like,
envelope in it?
yes, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sick.
So I told him, I was like, Fight Club is a movie about anti-establishment.
Yeah.
You stole an established government thing, and now it's yours, right? And he's like, dude, I never thought about it that way. So
no, it's legitimate, right? Like he didn't steal it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
His friend
stole it.
allegedly did it for him.
Okay,
So,
cool.
but no, I mean, Fight Club. I don't want to talk too much about Fight Club because I think it's pretty obvious that this is something that we're going to have to talk about on the podcast.
And it's been talked to death, too.
And it has been talked to death.
We're going to cover it, but
So
it's out there. And it's one of the movies that you said you have actually seen in this long list of movies, Tyler, which is surprising because it's a movie that I never thought that you would ever watch.
I don't remember when I saw it. It was not like when it was new. It was probably... It was way later. I mean, at least a decade after it came out, maybe longer than that even. But I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because culturally I kind of had an idea of like how it impacted people and what it might be about and things that they'd reference. Then I watched it and I was like, this is so different. This is completely different than like the cultural, feeling that I would get from others when they would describe it.
Yeah. How so, though?
I mean, that's something that you would probably want to go into when you actually cover the movie.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
I mean, because I could go on forever about that. But, it just... what I thought about it and then what other people thought about it didn't mesh as well as I thought that it would. I mean, it was something where it felt like there was a lot of disconnect between, like, the way it's portrayed culturally and what I felt the message was or what some of the... I mean, it's one of those things, too. It's like there can be so many.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not right. This is, some of the stuff that I thought, was pertinent and it was...
I've never read the book, but I've heard from numerous people that it is one of the most accurate adaptations from the book. Like, so many people that read the book and are fans are, like, pleased and happy and content with this Hollywood version of it. Yeah, it's definitely in the top 10 for sure. So mine would be, my next one is Office Space.
Office Space, yeah.
Yeah,
great movie.
Yeah, great movie. Yeah. Mine's higher on the list.
Nice.
I win.
DC load letter? What the f*** does that mean?
Wild West. That's all I have to say.
That's your next one?
No. All right, moving right along. Now we're cracking the top 3 here. Getting to the nitty gritty.
Wait, are we? Holy shit.
Yep.
Did I miss one then? Or do I have too many in here? Hold on one second.
Ooh.
1, 2, 3, 4,
You didn't number them?
6, 7,
Yeah.
8, 9, 10, 11. Holy shit.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
You had an honorable mention.
You're going to have an honorable mention there.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to take out Wild Wild West for me? Is that what you want to do?
Nope, it's living and breathing.
Locked in?
Yeah, it's locked in.
Damn.
You can have an 11.
I'll just go into my next one because you don't have it on yours and you said you've never seen it. Sixth Sense.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that movie.
I don't see anything. Are you sure they're there?
Sometimes you feel it inside, like you're falling down real fast. You ever feel the prickly things on the back of your neck?
Yes.
That's them.
Sixth Sense for me sticks with me because, God, was that M. Night's first movie?
I don't think
Signs.
it's his, yeah.
Signs was his first.
No, I think Signs came after.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
This is where we need John. M. Night Shyamalan. Anyways, can you look that up while I'm talking?
Yeah.
So it stuck with me because, in my opinion, M. Night has only had, Signs, Sixth Sense. I haven't seen Lady in the Water. Is that his, too?
That is his.
I heard that's pretty good. He just fell off a cliff, and he just started making these movies that, because the Signs and Sixth Sense had that... yeah, go back up. I think that was in order. They had this twist. That was what M. Night Shyamalan was famous for, was the twist.
Yep.
That just flipped the whole entire movie up.
So it looks like he had 2 movies before.
Yeah.
Praying with Anger and Wide Awake.
Whoa, Unbreakable was before Signs?
Yeah.
No shit?
Yeah.
I liked Unbreakable. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I bite my tongue a little bit here. Anyways, Sixth Sense and Signs, they were like synonymous for their twists.
Well, M. Night Shyamalan in general is synonymous.
Yeah, but
with
those were the
twists.
ones that like worked. His earlier work was the ones that actually like worked, and then his later work is just like forced.
Yeah.
But Sixth Sense was that one where it was just all the foreshadowing was there, but for some reason the whole entire movie flowed so well that you just didn't care to even read into it. Well, at least me. Someone like John that probably would read into it very heavily, but like I just was in the movie, and then when they finally like. Okay, so no spoilers, right? Because you said you actually know what happens.
I know what happens.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's 25 years later. I think it's
Well, for
it's
you, because
safe.
you're in the room with me right now.
I know.
Actually,
I know
yes, I should spoil it for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, when they finally revealed
the kid's dead the whole time.
The kid's dead, and Bruce Willis is dead the whole time. Yeah. So like when they finally revealed that, and it's not even like there's not even a ton of movie left over after that. It's not like a climax and then all this action happens.
Yeah.
It's basically just that's the reveal, and then all the stuff just gets wrapped up. It was so like angsty and stuff. It was like that's definitely on the list.
Yeah, I can't deny that is a very, very important movie. I just unfortunately have never seen it.
So I'll roll.
You want to go ahead and do your number 3 since you?
I'll roll into my number 3, which is Fight Club.
Had your special 11?
Yeah, I will roll into number 3, which is Fight Club.
Okay.
And it's silly because Matrix is on yours and I don't have it on mine, but maybe that's because
Nope.
Okay.
We guard you while you sleep. Do not fuck with us.
Yeah, Fight Club's on there. We already talked about it, but it is just one of those really well done movies, and it's one of those movies too that when people complain about Jared Leto because of the Joker and
his method acting,
Morbius, and all these terrible choices nowadays, I always say like Fight Club and Lord of War.
Yep.
Like you've never seen Jared Leto act in something that he's good.
Dallas Buyers Club.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Oh man.
Yep.
That one. He's a good actor. He just,
he needs direction, I think.
Well, and that's the quote I've always said is an actor's only as good as its director.
Mm-hmm.
They're not things.
They are when I'm directing
An
them.
actor is only good as he or she's director. You know what I mean? Like as a director is a director steering a ship.
Yep.
And it can only be as good as the director pulls it out of every department, and the director gives actors all the nuggets and all of the tools they need in order to be the character they need.
Yep.
And if you got Suicide Squad, there were no tools given to anybody, in my opinion, on that one. But yeah.
Well, so that was your number 3 then?
That's my number 3. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll swing back to me.
Mm-hmm.
My number 3 is The Matrix.
Soon, I shall be one with the Matrix.
I'm sure that you probably have seen this movie, Tyler.
I have.
you?
I'm pretty sure that we saw that when it came out.
Okay.
In theater or
in theaters? Not with my my folks, but that same cousin in Chicago. I believe that we may have seen it either in Chicago or in maybe in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. But that was incredible. Like I certainly had never seen anything like that before.
So you were like 14 or 15?
Yeah, I was. I think I was 14. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I didn't see Matrix until actually probably the second one, because it was like, for whatever reason, it was like a really big deal. Obviously, it was like, oh, this is a big movie sequel, big blockbuster thing. It was really big on MTV, kind of like around that age type of thing. And I was like, oh, there's a movie before this? So this movie has been memed to death. I mean, it's a very, very iconic movie.
And at the time, everything was parodying it.
For sure.
Cartoons and
Bullet Time.
Hold on a second. Just give me a moment.
Yep, bullet time. It was invented in this movie. So the whole, backwards dodging bullets thing that everybody kind of knows and borrows from this movie. It's part of the zeitgeist of American culture is the Matrix.
Because wasn't that video game Max Payne got its some of its
Max Payne. That was another one we were just talking about. Did you ever play Into the Matrix, which was the video game for the Matrix?
I remember seeing. There were 3 or 4 of them, right?
No, I think Into the Matrix was the only video game.
It was just
I believe it's the only video game. However, it's technically, I believe it bridges the gap between the first and the second movie.
Oh, okay.
So if memory,
probably confusing it with something else.
I'm going to get this really wrong, but if memory serves right, they didn't come out in this order because I think number 2 came out, and then I think Into the Matrix and Animatrix came out after number 2, if I'm not mistaken. But as far as I understand,
around the same time at least.
As far as I understand, Into the Matrix and Animatrix were supposed to take place timeline-wise between 1 and 2. So even though they came out later, they were supposed to fill in that information.
I've heard of that animated one. I remember people talking about that.
And the animated one, I was just talking to Brand about this earlier. It's kind of like, have you ever heard of Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix?
No.
It's a fun show that basically takes different animators, different cartoonists around the world, and there's short stories that either deal with love, death, or robots. And it's just a handful, 9 or 10 episodes a season, handful of different stories that involve those 3 subjects that are done by artists, and they're beautifully done, and they're short stories. And that's kind of what Animatrix was 5 or 6. I'd have to go back.
Yeah.
Shorts that basically just, one of them was an anime, one of them was totally CGI. So at the time, it was. Do you remember Fifth Element, the movie?
Yes, that's another one I haven't seen.
That was one where at the time, looking back on it, had nothing to do with Fifth Element or Fifth Element, Final Fantasy. Sorry.
Rejoice! Oh, everybody was so upset about that at the time, including me.
Yeah, because it had nothing to do with the Final Fantasy.
It was just its own, it just was its own thing.
Which, in argument, that's what Final Fantasies are.
Right.
But it still didn't. People were live in that kind of universe of Final Fantasy.
People were really hopeful that it was going to be based on one of the games that already existed.
But the cool thing about it was at the time, CG was still so infant that to do a movie like that,
it was phenomenal.
It was. And looking back on it now, it is kind of jank. But when it came out, so same thing with the Animatrix. There was one of, Animatrix. There was one of the stories that was all CGI, and at the time it was just so revolutionary, and it took them a hot minute to probably make it, just because and it was a short, so it was easier to do than Final Fantasy. But yeah, those. How do we get on this tangent?
You tell me, Bill.
I don't know. You tell me. Yeah.
That boy ain't right.
There we go. On to the next part.
Fair enough.
Matrix. It's so amazing that we're just talking about it for 3 hours. Yeah,
I'm stuck in the Matrix.
Yeah.
It was one of those movies I remember was one of the first ones that I kind of remember there being a parallel with, mythology or something, or not mythology, but with philosophy.
I was gonna say it does have its own mythology steeped in
certainly.
Philosophy.
Yeah,
I meant philosophy though.
Yeah.
So it's like a Plato's cave.
Right.
Allegory, type of thing.
That is a great way to put that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Pretty literal one.
Yeah.
I
had watched the movie fairly recently, and I would say that there's a lot of epistemological things where it's you don't know what you know until you know it type of thing. So,
can you for the viewers out there, not including me, that are stupid, can you describe that?
Epistemological?
Epistemological. God, now you're making me say it wrong.
Epistemology?
I'll feel so stupid now.
Epistemology is basically the philosophy of you don't know what you know type of thing, and you have to prove it. Okay. So how do you know that you're, Billy Venturelli?
Yeah.
What makes you Billy Venturelli?
I said I am.
Well, just because you said you are, does that make you you? And it's the whole philosophy, why are we doing this? So, but anyways, great movie. I would very, 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 very highly recommend this movie to anybody if they haven't seen it before. I don't know so much about the sequels, especially the last one. I would say steer clear, but the first one is definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. Well, we don't count the fourth one as the last one.
Yeah.
So are you saying steer clear of the number 3?
Some people don't even like the third one. So, but I would definitely say they're products of their time.
I enjoy them all, but it goes further than just that. But yeah, number one is definitely like it's iconic.
Yeah.
You can't beat it. There's so many, like Y2K and everything else. There's so many things going on at that time that like it stood out to the religious realm, like America in general. Just that. Whatever that fancy word is you used, of just who we are and why.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely...
It's like generated its own mysticism and...
For sure.
Yeah.
Good top three. Well, now I feel weird because my top three it's strange.
Okay. So I guess, does that lead us to your top three now? I'm kind of confused now.
My number, Fight Club was
11.
my number 3.
Okay.
So we can go back to the regular.
Okay. So are we both on number 2 now?
You can start with number 2.
Beautiful. My number 2 is The Green Mile. Give me your hand, boss.
Give me your hand, boss.
Give me your hands, boss.
So Michael Clark Duncan, we've got Tom Hanks, we've got Sam Rockwell, I believe, again, is in it. This movie, I have to say, this movie is like, when I think of cinema, with this podcast is Movies, Film, Cinema. A good film would be something like, Office Space. A good movie is something that's entertaining, maybe like Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Cinema-wise is The Green Mile for me.
Sure.
Green Mile it's so enthralling. It's so written so well. It's shot so well. You sympathize with all the characters. You are so immersed in this movie. And it is a longer movie, but it is something that...
It doesn't feel that long.
It doesn't feel that long.
It flows well.
This would be something that you could write whole college courses on, as this movie. So...
Yeah, it was just heart-wrenching. Yeah,
for sure.
I've seen that. That was another one I saw many years later, but it's phenomenal.
Same, yeah. And it's a Stephen King classic. So
I didn't know that until a few years back either.
Yeah. This and the Shawshank Redemption. These two movies kind of go hand in hand. As far
they
as
didn't come out around the same time though, right?
I believe so. I want to say Shawshank came out before Green Mile, if I'm not mistaken. But they're both of those movies are set in prison. The Green Mile is set in, forgive me,
it's like the
Deep South, and it's like in like the 1920s
20s or 30s.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a different element to the movie that adds to that, as far as like the timing, the time period is its own character, so to speak, and it kind of adds to like the sadness of the story. So it has its own elements, but The Green Mile, that's a good movie to share with anybody, and it teaches you about life. It teaches you about your own set of morals comparatively to what society has deemed right and wrong. So it's a great movie to make you think.
Yeah.
So
94 was Shawshank.
Nice.
So same era, but like
yep.
Yeah. I think the scene that stood out to me the most in that whole entire movie is the scene with Michael Jeter when his mouse was crushed.
Oh, yeah.
And it was mainly Michael's performance, like his screaming in the background as they're moving the mouse to Michael Duncan. Like, it's just like, it was just such a,
Yep.
Like, it just tears at you.
For sure. There's just a lot of emotion with that movie. Number 2 for you, Bill. What do you got?
What do you think I got?
Well, I know it's not Wild Wild West.
No, it's not. The Mummy.
The Mummy. Okay.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And again, this list is not necessarily like it wasn't like I think the best movies of 1999.
Yep.
I think a lot of it has to do with like my childhood and stuff like that. And it was one of my mom's favorite movies, so we watched it a lot.
Yeah.
It was just fun. It's just like we talked about earlier. It was just a fun adventure. And again, it wasn't totally serious like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones had its comedy in it, but Indiana Jones is more of that fantasy drama, whereas The Mummy is definitely a comedy. And so I think I put it up there just because it was a movie that we watched a lot, and it's fun, and it's still cinematic, and it's also in this day and age. I'll go on a little tangent. You have your physical media soapbox. My physical tangent right now is I hate when Hollywood uses CG or special practical camera techniques just because it's trendy. And what I mean is the recent Airbender live action on Netflix.
Yeah,
Man,
it's horrible.
It looks like 90% of that film was filmed on the volume. And if you don't know what the volume is, it was first widely introduced, not introduced, but widely introduced for The Mandalorian. And it's basically almost a 270-degree wrapping LED screen that's high enough quality. So instead of doing blue screen and green screen, it's an actual like screen projector behind the actors. And it's not a new technique technically, because you had rear projection back in the day with like car driving scenes, stuff like that. So it's the same idea, but this is LED screens, and
just a higher definition.
And usually it's background, right? So it's out of focus, anyways.
Yep.
But you're on a stage. Mandalorian, it worked because it's a physical stage that they built out with like the rocks and all that stuff, and then they just extended it with the volume. Whereas in Airbender, it was just they're just
abusing it
in scenes. They're just standing in scenes talking. There was no and The Mummy. Yes, it was filmed in 1999, and there wasn't a lot of those techniques, so they had to go on location. But when you go on location to like Egypt and like all these locations and stuff like that, like you're in it and you're experiencing it. You're on the Nile and all that, whether they filmed it on the Nile or not. But it's just an adventure movie. It's fun.
Yep.
Watched it a lot as a kid because it was in our family. I have the VHS still. Don't know if it's moldy or worn out or whatever. I haven't played it, but yeah. Number 2.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I guess we're at our number 1 spots.
Yep. Yours is a pretty good choice.
Mine, I have to say, is...
Was it hard to pick that one?
For me, it wasn't. To be honest with you. This was probably the easiest one on the list for me.
Wow, okay.
Bigger, longer, and uncut, South Park.
Man, that movie gets better every time I see it.
I have been doing voices since I was a kid. You know, I used to do the Cartman voice all the time, do all of the characters on the show as much as I could. I've learned very young that if I wanted to be more comical or funny or convey a story better, you do the voice and people are like, oh, that's great, you know? So I remember as a kid, doing the Cartman voices back and forth with my brothers and sisters and friends, and my parents getting mad at us and going, stop doing that stupid voice, you know?
Pissing off the parents is always what creates great memories. Yeah.
Exactly. And we had talked about this actually yesterday about just South Park in general, but like my parents recently watched this and they're like, oh, this is great. How come we didn't know about this? I'm like, I used to sneak down in a basement and watch it on 2% volume and giggle into a pillow because I wasn't allowed to watch it because it came on late at night. And I'm like, you know.
The parents have to see for themselves.
Dude, sometimes I think our parents are really stupid. Because we're your parents.
So South Park is just so iconic. And this is one of the few movies I feel that's on here that it's something that you couldn't, like, if it came out tomorrow, if it came out, 20 years from now, because of obviously the animation is made to be looking like horrible and it's meant to do that way.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell, right? It's just so funny.
You know what's funny is we go back to Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Pokemon, like most cartoons, when you watch it, they have to pump them out quickly. So they're just not the best quality. But when you make a movie of it, they have all that extra time and money. South Park just looks like South Park.
Yeah, South Park looks like South Park. And,
just more actors and like bigger scenes and stuff like that. But it still just looks as jank as it does on TV.
Yeah, and really like I think the only thing that it has like that would not resonate with people watching it now is Saddam Hussein. So like, when he's like, Satan, like
Saddam Hussein? Relax, baby. I'm not him.
People wouldn't understand like he was a prominent, dictator at that time. And it's like, okay, there's just like some funny guy with a funny voice.
Well, and that is the problem. That's crazy. That's your number one. That is the problem. And the beauty of South Park is for those who are listening, Matt Stone and Trey Parker are still pumping out episodes. And they do it. They try to be so topical. Is that the right?
Yeah, very topical.
To the point where they are pumping out an episode every week for whatever's happening that week.
Yep.
And they're still doing it to this day. And it's like that's why the shows are so poignant because they hit hard, but that's also kind of their detriment where it's like, it's pretty topical to the time. But for the most part, it's history, right? So
yeah,
it lives on, and it's actually what happened and it is happening, and I don't know how those guys haven't died from like a heart attack or an aneurysm or whatever, because that's just so much work
It is
to do.
There's a great documentary called 1 Week to Show that you can find on YouTube pretty easily.
Yeah.
That goes through their whole process. Like the first day they write, the second day they, condense. Then they're starting to do voice acting, and then they're starting to animating, and then sometimes they have to go back because that idea didn't work. And there's many times where like the show's supposed to air at a certain time, and they're running to the studio going, "Oh, here you go," and like we need it now. Like they're like, just shove it in the player, it's good. So
is that in the same documentary? I've seen excerpts of their voice sessions.
Yes, that's the same documentary.
The cuttlefish one.
Yeah, exactly. That's
a cuttlefish.
Yeah,
That's a cuttlefish in his
It's so funny. It's so stupid.
That's a cuttlefish and asparagus is not the sitting well. Oh no, cuttlefish.
Exactly.
This South Park movie, were they still using like the paper and all that kind of stuff?
The paper was only the first 2 episodes or first episode?
So I don't know if you're familiar with South Park in general. It's like as far as how it became, but South Park, Trey Parker, Matt Stone, they were in college. They were broke college kids, so they were like, how do we make a film? They made it was like Santa and Jesus fighting, and they made him out of clay paper, and they had the little South Park kids, and they cut it out, and that's how they made stop animation. Well, the very, very, very first episode of South Park, they did that, and they're like, it took us 3 months to make one episode, right? And so they're like, we gotta figure something else out. So from after the very first episode,
so it was only that first one.
The very first one was that they just did everything with a computer.
Okay.
So
you can actually see it on the first one, like the shadowing behind like the actual characters and stuff. And
yep. So nowadays, because of the computers are so advanced, it's animated the same way, but it doesn't look like paper like it did back in the day. So
interesting.
So they didn't lose the aesthetic; they just streamlined the damn thing.
Yes. So where it's literally like editors just going like, okay, I'm going to put the Butter's face on Butter's head, and they just make the mouth movements because it's already pre-programmed with the computer. So
I think like the timeline for producing stuff was similar to like what The Simpsons was in the 90s sometimes, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds like parallel to that. I remember hearing like the same stuff.
Yep.
So while on the subject, I have not a lot of people know about this, but now that we're trying to get this out there, one of my favorite Matt Stone and Trey Parker things ever made was Cannibal the Musical.
Well, I'd rather be a miner than a trapper any day.
You guys don't even know what it means to be a trapper.
Yeah. Tell him, French.
I can catch a helpless animal, skin it with my bare hands. I wake up muddy and I go to bed bloody, 'cause I'm a trapping man.
I've heard you talking about
and
that
I
one.
mentioned it. Have you seen it yet?
I have not seen it.
I've seen that.
You've seen it?
I have another friend that's super into South Park, and I watched that with him.
It's amazing,
when we were in high school, and it was good.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
It's about Alfred Packer. He's a gold miner, right?
No,
he's a miner of some sorts.
Man, I wish I could remember like the details. It's been like I watched it in high school. So this was more than 20 years ago. But he was a local Colorado person.
Yeah.
Like a mountain man type of guy.
Mountain man, but he was some sort of miner or something. But the whole movie is them crossing the Rockies to get to the next area where they hear that there's
gold
a
up
lot
in
of
their
gold
hills?
or whatever it may be. So they're making the trek across the mountains.
Just look him up.
Alfred Packer.
Yeah, just look him
up. So it was done while they were in college, and as far as I understand, my professor in college actually helped them out on it.
We went. I mean, after we watched this movie, we went to his grave and everything. It's not too far from where I live.
Yeah, so it's still a Matt Stone and Trey Parker story. So it's like it's based off true things, but they take it places.
Make it ridiculous.
My professor in college, she. I forget if she was like a line producer or something, but she helped him out on it. But as far as I understand, it might be wives' tale. It's the reason why they failed out of college, because they spent all their time working on this. But it's great. Like I remember a scene in the movie where it's like a wide shot of a mountain town, and they're entering into a trading post or something like that, and the swinging doors happen or whatever. And again, it's a wide shot, so you just see the town. And they enter in, and all of a sudden you just hear Cartman's voice inside the town. And this was before South Park and everything. So it's like, obviously it's them goofing around, but it's like, it has essence of South Park in it.
Howdy.
But it's great. It's a musical. It is what it sounds like, but it's a Matt Stone and Trey Parker musical. So it's just like there are some just ridiculous moments throughout the whole thing. There's like a definitely like shining moment in the snow, frozen dude, stuff like that, and like it's good. So now that we're on this platform, Cannibal the Musical. If you haven't heard of it, go see it.
Awesome. Well, that is our top 10 list.
Not mine. You didn't hear my top one, and it's
your 11 messed me up, man.
Yeah, I guess it did.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill. I apologize.
You ready for this one?
I don't know if I am. Like Care Bear something or something really obscure.
Star Wars: A Phantom Menace.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even put two and two together of like paying attention to your list. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Phantom Menace would be my top one, and again, I wouldn't qualify it as a top one best movie of 1999, but 11 years old, Space Wars. Space Wars and pod racing.
Yeah.
Like,
the pod racing thing was really cool.
Pod racing is amazing.
That was really cool.
It's Skywalker!
Yes, we have our problems with Phantom Menace, right? But when you're a kid and you have this devil-horned Darth Maul come out and reveal a dark red lightsaber and then all of a sudden flip it over and there's a other side to the lightsaber.
There's two.
There's a double-sided lightsaber.
We gotta do something, R2.
And he's fighting Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and it's a younger Obi-Wan, and pod racing and space battles.
Yeah.
And like it just as an 11-year-old not knowing, and like you guys, I don't remember if I saw A New Hope when I was younger. I have my parents' original 3 VHS box set. So we watched it a lot, and it was the unbastardized version.
Mm-hmm.
It's the OG. So I forget if I've seen that before or if Phantom Menace was my first experience. But again, 11 years old, 1999, pod racing, double-sided lightsabers, flippity-doos, the Force. Like as an 11-year-old, I loved it. And notice how I'm not mentioning one character.
Although we all remember Jar Jar.
Because even as a kid, it was stupid.
Yeah.
Fart jokes and all.
Yeah.
Just like the whole Naboo fight scene. Were they on Naboo when they were fighting? When Jar Jar was on the planet and they had all the water electric ball bombs. I think that was on the plains of Naboo or something like that.
Misa don't remember.
Yeah, nobody does. Because all it was him just being an idiot.
Yeah.
But, and another reason why I think I put it on here is because from that has stemmed, have you heard of all of the theories of Jar Jar Binks being like a dark Sith Lord?
Yes,
I have.
And
a Jedi Master and like all that stuff on...
I think it's nerds just trying to
justify and I think
that's how this stuff is becoming like mysticism. And
that's why it's becoming good.
Yeah.
It's like...
And have you seen a fan art of Darth Jar Jar?
Darth Jar Jar.
Look it up real quick and put it up on there. Like, you will love this. And again,
sounds hilarious.
It's actually pretty good.
No, I mean in a great way.
Darth Jar Jar.
Just
go down to the images and
it just reminds me of how sometimes like religion will
that one
completely
right
change the context of something.
Look at that, and then the one below it. Once you click on that, look at that.
Oh yeah.
Look at that rendering of what Jar Jar could have been.
He's so scary.
Yeah, he is. So yes, I put it up there. Again, I don't think is in terms of cinematic masterpieces. No. But in terms of an 11-year-old watching a space war and special effects, and a lot of it still does actually kind of hold up, but there are some plasticky things that are in it, especially if you see the remastered version.
Yep.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think too, one thing that reminds me of Star Wars, the first episode, is, and I don't know if you guys are fans of him, but Weird Al Yankovic, where he had recapped basically the whole movie, the Star Wars from the American Pie parody.
Yeah.
And that...
I was just singing that earlier.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's stuck in my head every time I hear the original song. I still sing the Star Wars version. Mm-hmm. The really cool thing about that song in particular, he wrote that song before the movie came out. And all of the things that he sung in the song happened in the movie, but he hadn't seen the movie yet. And all the things he got from the movie is off of like chat rooms and forums and stuff like that from like Star Wars nerds that had pieced together from the trailer and kind of like created what they thought the movie was going to be from Star Wars lore and from everything. Yeah. So,
I mean, like, think about that. When it came out, like, everyone came out of the woodworks. Like, when was episode 6 filmed? And then when, like, decades went by before the next Star Wars film.
Yeah, I think it was, I want to say like 85, 87, I can't remember for the last.
Between episode 6 and then Phantom Menace. So between the original, like.
Between those.
The original.
Yeah,
like,
it was
3.
It was like at least a decade.
Yeah.
A decade or two.
And then all the hype, and yes, some of the hyped it up too much and then it was let down. But like, people came out of the woodworks and like wanted to see that movie. And like, again, minus Darth Jar Jar. It was a whimsical movie.
Yeah.
It had so much.
At least you can say for the first quote unquote 3 episodes of Star Wars, at least they were consistent comparatively to the last 3.
And that is
Star
the argument
Wars.
nowadays, right? Like episodes 7, 8, 9. 7 had potential.
Yep.
8 was going places. And then 9, it was just like
I feel differently because I feel like 8 was like what the heck happened, and 9
because they were trying to get away from
itself.
the whole like Palpatine storyline and it's dumpster fire.
Somehow
Star Wars nerds gonna Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars nerds gonna Star Wars. There you go. Top
10, man. Well, I figured before we start trying to close this thing out, because we're talking about the year 1999, I figured we just kind of mention, and I'm going to rapid fire these at this point. The honorable mentions of that year, some of the movies that I remembered or kind of like at least had some familiarity with, and stuff that just barely missed my list. I have Idle Hands, October Sky, Princess Mononoke, 13th Warrior, Dogma. I love that movie, and if you're a physical media person, I know you want that on Blu-ray. Varsity Blues, Payback, 8mm, Analyze This, Cruel Intentions, Lock, Stock, and Two Barrels, great film. Ed TV, Never Been Kissed, American Pie, almost made my list as well. Life with Martin Lawrence, Instinct. Looks like we've got Blair Witch Project, which we talked about, Lake Placid, Drop Dead Gorgeous, The Haunting, Deep Blue Sea, A Mother Bleepin' Shark Ate Me, Iron Giant, Mystery Men. We have Stigmata, Stir of Echoes, Blue Streak, For the Love of the Game, Jacob the Liar, which is an underrated Robin Williams movie, American Beauty, Three Kings, Superstar, Being John Malkovich, Bone Collector, the list goes on and on, Sleepy Hollow, The World's Not Enough, End of Days, Deuce Bigelow, Bicentennial Man, which almost also made my list, Fantasia 2000, Stuart Little, Girl Interrupted, Any Given Sunday, The Talented Mr. Ripley, and The Hurricane with Denzel Washington.
1999 was on fire, man. I didn't even realize it until you sent me this list.
Yeah, and that's just the stuff I recognized. I'm sure that there's movies out there that people are like, I can't believe they didn't mention this.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was on their top 10. I know that there's so much more out there that we haven't got to, but let me tell you, this is going to be a fun ride for everybody when they stay through these podcasts and listen and we talk about these movies. Before we wrap up here today, I think it's time to take another ad break. We're going to come right back from our ad. We're going to discuss a few things that we've been watching here recently, possibly discuss what we're going to be watching next week and talking about next time, and then we're going to go from there. We'll see you guys soon.
From today's sponsor, Nature, I present to you a revolutionary product, a product that will undoubtedly blow your mind and body. Food. Forget everything you thought you knew about sustenance. Food is here to revolutionize your life. Tired of that empty, growling stomach? Just try some food. Need energy to conquer your day? Food's got you covered. It's like magic, but edible. Now, you might be thinking, isn't this just a fancy name for what I'm already eating? Oh, dear listener, you've been deprived. Nature's food is packed with everything you never knew you needed. Crunchy, chewy, savory, sweet. It's the Swiss Army knife of consumables. So why wait? Dive into the delicious world of food today. Your taste buds will thank you. And remember, if it's not food, it's just, well, not as awesome.
Hey, that was a fun ad. Hey, speaking of eating things, Alfred Packard, right? He was a cannibal.
Yeah.
He liked to eat fun things.
Apparently, yeah. He was known as Colorado's cannibal. Was an American prospector and self-proclaimed wilderness guide who confessed to cannibalism during the winter of 1874. Just straight up confessed to it, I guess. But
cannibalism.
Yeah, so that was
again Cannibal the musical. Matt Stone, Trey Parker. One of their. This was well before Basketball and Orgasmo.
Ooh, that's a great movie too.
Yeah, that was, and I didn't remember like his timeline or anything. That was before Colorado was even a state. That was just.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was when it was still a territory. Yeah, because Colorado was 1876. That's when it became a state.
My go-to in my brain was like, how would you know this? But it's Tyler. This is what you love. You love Colorado history and you love the mountains, and I would never. Dates are just a.
I remember some of them.
Yeah.
Most of them I don't. I would not pass any tests.
You passed my test, buddy. Well, hey, while we're wrapping up here, one thing I want us to kind of get in the habit of or doing is we're not only just talking about movies from 1999 this season, but also I want to talk about maybe some of the stuff you've been watching recently, some of the stuff that you, whether it be books or, movies, something that you've kind of consumed recently that you maybe like want to share, or just say, hey, that's something you're enjoying, something fun that you want to not only recommend what movies we're watching, but recommend other things to people. So you guys watching anything new or something that you want to plug or anything?
Recently, Blue-Eyed Samurai on Netflix.
Blue-Eyed Samurai, okay.
It's a mature comic or mature cartoon, but it's what it sounds like. It's about it's loosely based off of when in Japanese era, when there was any kind of light-skinned or non-Japanese races, they tried to like eradicate them from their race. But it's a very not kung fu because it's Japanese. It's a very samurai martial arts driven drama, but it's cartoon and it's very well animated, very quick, and it's so good. I did kung fu for 9 years and love that whole realm and stuff. So it's like it spoke to me, and it's very very bloody. There's a lot of nipples. So it's definitely rated R, but it's really well done, and it's a pretty quick watch. But saw that one recently.
Awesome.
Yeah. So recently, movies I haven't seen anything or been looking to see anything really. But I did just finish going through like a huge World War II documentary that was from the early 70s. Been learning about World War II. I felt I didn't know enough about it. I have some friends that are really involved in like reenactment and other, historical stuff, and felt I should, my knowledge was lacking. So there was, I'm trying to remember, it's called World at War, and it was produced in like the early, I think it came out in like 73. And it's incredible. I mean, it's a lot to get through. It's like 25 episodes. I think they're each like an hour long, but it was filmed back when a lot of those people were still alive, and they filmed, people that were high-ranking officials on like from every side. I mean, it's really remarkable.
So not just the American side.
Like
oh wow,
Nazis and Japanese, and everybody, British, and people from all over the world, soldiers. Was it like high-ranking generals?
Was it a UK documentary? Was it
UK?
American?
Yes, okay. Yeah, it was UK. It was narrated by, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was, he's real famous. But incredible. I mean,
not David Attenborough, is it?
No.
Samuel L. Jackson. Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
In 73.
Yeah.
I mean.
But no, I mean, if you're like a World War II history buff, or even you're just curious about the historical currents from that period, because I mean, it was a conflict that really changed culture in a massive way. Even in the cinema world, and stuff. So if you're at all interested, it's absolutely worth your time. It can be heavy and difficult to get through, but fascinating.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
A lot of people never heard of I think it's called They Shall Not Grow Old.
Oh, yes. That's a World War I documentary. Peter Jackson, right?
Peter Jackson, World War. It's kind of like a...
I have heard of that.
Ode to his grandpa or his dad. I forget. It's got to be his grandpa.
One of his distant relatives.
Yeah, exactly. But why I love it so much is because it's all the old 16 millimeter and black and white print from the actual war, but it's all MOS cameras, which is MIT sound, so no sound, right? So basically what they did is in cinema you have 24 frames a second. 16 millimeter old time would be 12 or 15 frames a second or whatever. So it's that
makes people look walking fast.
Yeah, all
and
that
doing
stuff.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they post-processed the film in order to be 24 frames a second. They colorized it, and then they turned it 16:9, which is the normal viewing aspect ratio that people like to see. And then they went further into it, and they had lip readers read the lips of these people in there, and then they would compare what the lip readers were reading to documents that were passed around for these troops at the time.
Oh, wow.
And then they voice-overed it. And as a person who is not a huge historian buff or whatever, or hasn't seen a lot of old historian movies and stuff like that, I'm a technical film guy. So taking 16 millimeter film and then colorizing it and putting it into that format makes it so real. And that's a weird, silly statement because World War I did happen, but it's so far away from our generation that it's just it doesn't feel real.
It was deadly warfare. You were facing the Germans.
Follow me.
You got the order load. You put 9 in your magazine and 1 up the spout, and you put your safety catch on, and you always went into the line prepared to use your rifle immediately.
And that's with this documentary, there is some really rare color footage. And
that makes it even more real to see the color footage mixed in with the
it's kind of surreal, so you see some of that stuff and it really does make it feel more real. I mean, some people, it doesn't seem to affect their interpretation of the events or whatever, but I didn't think it really did for me. But then I saw some photographs that were in color and then also some of this color footage, and it really does help it feel more real. It's interesting.
It's a weird concept for our generation.
It's a good point.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I recommend. So to piggyback yours, you've been telling me about that. What's it called? War of the World?
Yeah, World at War.
World at War.
Yeah, it's a documentary series.
So get on both of those. They're just so well done.
Yeah, for sure. As you've heard, I'm on my physical media soapbox, but shortly after purchasing Paramount Plus for the Super Bowl to watch that, I got a chance to watch 2, what I would say is one almost kind of like a documentary style movie or show rather, and then just like a really good drama show. Tulsa King, if you get a chance, with Stallone, is a great, it almost kind of feels like Breaking Bad a little bit. It's got that high drama action in it. Kind of feels a little bit old school, like Western feel a little bit because it's set in Tulsa. But old school meets new school type of thing. And then the other thing that I would very highly recommend, especially if you're a big movie person, is called The Offer. The Offer is with, oh goodness, I can't think of his name. Miles Teller, sorry, who portrays a real life person. And this is the real life story of how The Godfather was made. So Miles Teller plays a character who, well, not a character. He plays an actual person who's a producer and had to work with the mob in order to get the Godfather made. Fighting the studios, fighting the mob, fighting creative differences. It's, I want to say 8 or 9 episodes, and it is very, very well done. I mean, the whole time watching it, I'm like, God, I got to watch The Godfather as soon as this is over. So one of the very few times that I've watched something on streaming that I would highly recommend just to go get something streaming and then say, hey, it's done and over with. But as a physical media person, Tulsa King is on DVD if you want to go grab it at Walmart, and The Offer is on Blu-ray if you want to get it from Amazon.com.
Nice little cover there.
Yep.
But you still touch streaming.
This is true.
Do you feel dirty?
A little bit, but...
If you touch it, it's yours.
Like I said, this is the world we live in, and I will push physical media as much as I can.
Yeah.
So, So speaking of physical media, if you're looking at ways to support us here on the podcast at Movies, Film, Cinema, linked below will be our Amazon affiliate. If you want to go buy some physical media to watch these movies that we talk about or have talked about. Also, something that I found out that's really fun about the affiliate link. If you, hey, I'm going to go make a purchase of my, weekly, whether it be makeup or toiletries or anything else that you buy off Amazon that you get weekly.
Beast Wars action figures.
Something that you buy frequently. If you hit our link first before you go buy that, we get a little kickback in the realm of Amazon world. So you can support us there, passive way to do it. That way you don't have to chuck in a buck to support us there. Other ways you can support us here, on all of our social medias, we're on Facebook. We're going to be on TikTok. We are on Instagram. All of the fun, normal social medias. The other things that we're going to be on, still figuring out, is Letterboxd. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but Letterboxd is just a quick way you can look up reviews for movies. It's kind of like Rotten Tomatoes, but it's more has like a Facebook, Instagram feel.
That's critic driven.
That's very critic driven, correct? Yeah. So something that you can support us there. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. Follow us on all our social medias. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to be on all of your major podcasting apps. We're going to be on our YouTube channel where you can find us at Movies.Film.Cinema.Pod, is the name of our channel. And we'll also have a clip show for you as well. So find us. Everything's going to be in our links below. So this is our first episode. I want to thank our guests for today. I want to thank the Mime Doctor. I want to thank Billy Venturelli coming down from Seattle, coming to make our show for us today. But I want
Thanks for flying me in.
Yeah.
It was first class was amazing.
Yeah, well, everything for baby. So, thank you guys very much for coming in today and spending your time with me.
Oh, you bet.
So that is our podcast.
This is my first and only one.
No,
I'm out.
You're done. Thank you guys very much for spending your time with us today, and thank you for watching or listening. We just want to thank you very much for joining us today. And as always, Movies, Film, Cinema, we're here for you. Boop, 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 outro music. Beep, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop.